are live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 2018 movie BlacKkKlansman. Nathan, do you have a history of BlacKkKlansman?
Yes, I just finished watching it 20 minutes ago or something. I did not know anything about it before you suggested it.
This is actually a gift from Andrew that I probably had around for 2 years. So.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like the 4K Ultra because the movie looks really good, but however, the special features on this are awful. So
Not so special.
No commentary. There's a special like video called like a Spike Lee joint where it says Ron Stallworth, Jordan Peele, and the cast discuss working with the iconic director. It's like 10 minutes long. Spike Lee doesn't talk in it. It's just like behind the scene footage of him directing enthusiastically, and then it's other people talking about Spike Lee, and then it's done, and that's it. That's the only special features on the movie. So.
Yeah, they just don't do that like they used to anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's what you got Criterion Collection and Arrow and all those other weird places for. So.
Yeah.
Well, this was a Focus feature movie. Also, Blumhouse is in there. A bunch of people are attached to this. Yeah, it was originally going to be a Jordan Peele movie, but then for some reason he couldn't do it. But he's just the producer of it, and so Spike Lee came in and directed it. Which I love Spike Lee movies, but this is like pretty straightforward for a Spike Lee movie. Because I always enjoy it. Because like I don't necessarily like hold the same like political like values that Spike Lee does because I'm a white guy, so of course I'm not. But I appreciate his perspective. But what I gravitate to is his weirdness that he brings to his movies. Like that's so weird. It's like Lynchian stuff that just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And here it's pretty straightforward, but it's fine. It's still a well-directed movie. So.
Yeah, this isn't like one of the ones I like Do the Right Thing, Crooklyn, Clockers, Summer of Sam. Like those are like Spike Lee movies. There's a lot more than that too.
Yeah.
But, Chirac is another one. That's the Spike Lee like that. It's got that element of weirdness in it. Like what's going on?
I remember there's one that's called Girl 6, but I've never watched it. But I've seen the one scene from the movie where it's like the protagonists share a kiss at the end of the movie, and in the movie she's a phone sex operator, and so during the kiss just phones fall from the sky and are breaking around them as they kiss.
Yeah. Like that.
Like that's awesome. I don't know if this movie's good, but that's awesome.
That visual alone has, it's
or
done
like
something to me.
What is it? It's like in Bamboozled. There's like a talking hamburger that like talks to,
What is that?
I can't. I think of his name.
I was thinking it's like this is like Naked Lunch or what am I watching here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't remember that, but yeah.
Damon Wayans.
Damon Wayans. Yep.
And he plays like this. Yeah, that's a weird movie too because that's about like black people taking on blackface as like a weird cultural reappropriation of something that was used against them. And then somebody turning it around and using it as like a business acumen.
Yeah, then it's like also underground theater at the same time with that, and it's like, who's coming to see this and why? And it's just
and then ultimately
it's a lot of ideas floating around a weird nucleus.
Yeah. Well, ultimately it's like the thing is toxic and it kills the like artist or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, you can't survive on this.
It's some kind of like what would I say, or how would you say it? It's like just a manifestation of evil. It's like all blackface is a Faustian bargain that consumes you, and it's like, but half the people seem crazy already. It's like, oh, they were just primed for evil to destroy them. They half wanted it anyway. It's like the dumb face of evil.
So the cinematographer was Chase Irving. What's he done? He did that Blonde movie, that Netflix Marilyn Monroe movie.
Okay.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't either.
I know it exists. I was kind of excited for it, and then just never, never saw it. He does a lot of music videos. Um, yeah, this kind of looks like his maybe might be his biggest movie, the BlacKkKlansman.
Yeah.
But I
The
don't know.
movie
This,
kind of looks like a video.
yeah, this movie looks good. Um, that's yeah. This is a hell of a writing. So we got two ampersands and one and. So that means two writing teams wrote this separately. So we got Charlie Wachel and David Robinowitz, and then
Rabinowitz.
Rabinowitz, and then Kevin Wilmot and Spike Lee. Um, I'm not sure who did the most. That was just how the order of it. And then, of course, this is based on a book by Ron Stallworth, which this is based on. Which he also wrote the book and he narrates it. So
Oh, okay.
well, that one, like here, that one's just BlacKkKlansman, two different words. Here, BlacKkKlansman is like a camel case shoved together word where black ends with a capital K. There's a small K and then another capital K, and then that's Klansman. So BlacKkKlansman is one word, and then KKK is in the middle of the word. So,
Yeah.
So in case you're looking for it, you get a weird result. Now, that's what's going on there. I actually didn't look up these writing teams and what else they've done. No, don't recognize anything from that guy. This is like this guy's only movie he wrote on. And Spike Lee wrote a lot of his like a lot of his like early movies, but lately he's been directing a lot of scripts that weren't his. Yeah, I don't recognize this guy. Oh, Da 5 Bloods. Yeah, I remember that. That was that Netflix. Like,
Oh yeah.
Uh,
The Vietnam one.
Black Vietnam veterans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cast is John David Washington, Adam Driver, and Laura Harrier. I don't even remember who that. Oh, that's that girl. That's what's her name? I'm forgetting her name.
Patrice.
Patrice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at the when you look up the actors, because in this movie it was like 70s, like it was that very cool black style from the 70s of giant hair.
Yeah.
It's like you look up the real actors, like, oh, nobody does that anymore. It's like, they don't even look like the same people. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I wanted to see her, and it's like, where's her giant hair? It's like, oh, yeah, nobody does that.
Not for a modern movie that takes place in modern time, I guess. Though it is weird with John David Washington, because that is Denzel Washington's son, and every once in a while he sounds exactly like his dad.
Yeah, he does. He was the best part of
Tenet.
What, huh?
Tenet.
Yeah, he was the best part of Tenet. I did not know who that was. I liked the guy the whole movie, and then it's like, oh yeah, because he was like the only thing that made sense in that movie to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here come the smartest kids in the room again. I'm too dumb to watch this movie. But me and John David Washington are going to take this ride together. Because this is a bunch of horse shit. But I love it for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, so we have Act 1. I wrote we get some old film and a lady looking for Dr. Mead. I wrote, is this Birth of a Nation? But actually, is this, do you know what movie this is?
I thought it was Birth of a Nation.
But it's in color, so I don't know if they colorized it or if this is Gone with the Wind or something. I don't recognize what this movie is.
Okay, I just assumed it was Birth of a Nation.
Well, Birth of a Nation came out like, I don't know, like the 20s or something like that, so it wouldn't have that film quality.
I mean, I was old enough that like Woodrow Wilson watched it in the White House. So.
Yeah, and then there's like I don't know, it's interesting because there's like wounded bodies over like 5 different train tracks, and they're just wounded bodies everywhere. Like
yeah.
Which I'm guessing is a little movie, because nowadays that would just all be CGI re-characters plastered or cut and paste all over the train tracks. For here, it's all real people. And and then there's a tattered Confederate flag. And then we cut to it's black and white footage. There's a Confederate flag there. We get Dr. Kinnenbrew Beauregard, which is played by Alec Baldwin. Is this a real guy? I don't.
I'm sure it is.
Okay. He's talking about like integration being a nightmare. There's also it's like intercut with like outtakes. It's like it's not the first take. It's like it's like intercut with like he's trying things out and then he's like kind of being weird. This almost seems like I don't know. This is pretty weird. So this is more Spike Lee, but also feels like Oliver Stone here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was like this is like Nixon. Like you're in the room and in the background like a reel-to-reel recorder is playing and dun, 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 you know, like things are happening.
And he's just standing amongst the projection and like weird things are happening. He looks like he's in a lava lamp or something.
Yeah, it's like the movie's being projected on him and the wall behind him. And
yeah.
It's very, very
but it's like the projector's down low, so it's like casting a shadow that kind of looms over him.
Yeah.
And this is where he mentions like commies and blacks are conspiring against white Protestants, and so
yeah,
that's a tale as old as time.
Oh yeah, this is no new ground here. This is all just repacking.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, I know this is done through modern eyes, but it's embarrassing how like this stuff just never changes.
No, it doesn't.
And they don't even like.
I've met people like this in real life because. I'm just like, oh, this guy's in the Ku Klux Klan. Can I talk to him? You know, I wanted to, because some people hear that and they're like, oh, it's like, well, he doesn't have the power of levitation or something. He just belongs to some group. And then you talk to these people and guess what? You find out they're all dumb. They don't.
Yeah.
It's a one-track record. They don't have anything interesting to say. And people like assign them like, oh, these guys are trouble. They're like real badasses. It's like, no, they're just stupid. They're not interesting in any. There's nothing interesting. The only thing interesting about them is they hate people. They don't even really have good or like original reasons for hating them. They just hate them. And that's not even, they don't hate individuals. They just collectively hate groups.
Yeah.
And it's always, people assign it a lot of power as in terms of both fear and envy or whatever, but really it's just when you see the evil, it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's kind of disappointing. It's like, this is the great evil? Okay. Wow, this is kind of dumb.
Then we cut to the films in color and you see like the Colorado mountains. We also get the camera's kind of looking down on a sidewalk and we get titles that say Disjoint is based on some for real shit. So this is Spike Lee's way of saying it was based on a true story.
Yeah.
Which it is. Although I will tell you, the book is incredibly straightforward and not as as vibrant and exciting as this movie.
You mean it was a book written by a cop?
Yeah.
It's a police report?
I mean, like some of the obvious stuff like happens in the book where it's like, oh yeah, this is crazy. A black man is pretending to join the KKK. Nobody's the wiser. That does happen. But like in the book, everyone's just kind of like you say, they're just kind of like idiots that need a place. They want to join in somewhere, and this is the only place they feel like they can belong. And here they're like, no, these are people are really violent. They're gonna do something. Where in the book, it's like they're never gonna do anything.
Some of them are literally like mentally challenged. Like you could just, if you met them, you'd be like, well, this guy probably needs like some kind of guidance or help. This guy probably shouldn't be driving.
And then we get the title of BlacKklansman. And we got Ron Stallworth, played by John David Washington. He walks into frame, and he sees the banner, "Join the Colorado Springs Police Force. Minorities encouraged to apply." Which, I can't remember if that banner was true, but it was a thing where they were looking for minorities to join the police department.
Yeah.
Or Colorado Springs Police Department. Which I don't know exactly where it is. Is that near NORAD? Because there's always a bunch of NORAD stuff.
Yeah, Colorado Springs, basically, the reason they had such they were so ahead of their time in a lot of things like that, and because you wouldn't think like the middle of Colorado would be, it's because it's basically all government contracts that run the whole city, and that's where all the government programs and everything kind of affiliated with it. Like, well, you have to have a certain you you have to let people in. It has to be more diverse. So you have to. That's why, because there's a lot of government contracts to be had there, and government contracts always come with like, it's like, well, this is tax money and the people are paying for it, so all the people need to be represented in hiring, or it's something like that. I don't. I'm just guessing. I'm probably not wrong.
And I don't know if they shot this movie in Colorado, but Colorado looks really good in this movie. It's like, it looks like a nice place.
Yeah, it's like I want to live here.
Although they don't show anybody like huffing and puffing around, like, oh my god.
They don't show us like binge drinking. You don't binge drink in Colorado like you do in Michigan.
You gotta leave the pizza in extra longer, or no, is it shorter time? I can't remember what it is.
Oh, the atmosphere would be thinner, so however that would affect you. Gotta adjust your carb.
Yeah. Yeah, you got your air conditioning's got to be all different. Although I don't know the elevation level of Colorado Springs. I just assume all of Colorado's a mile high, but I actually don't know like where that begins or ends.
Yeah, I mean there's mountains around it, so let's see. Go ahead.
So yeah, we cut to Rana's being interviewed for a job in the police force. Here we get Mr. Turretine, who's like kind of a local official. He's not with the police, but he's the one. He's a black official, so he's looking for minority candidates. So of course he's in the interview. This is played by Isaiah Whitlock Jr., who's most famous for being the mayor from The Wire, and he even does his thing here.
Yep. I knew that guy was in The Wire. I thought he was like the aide or something, but okay.
No, he's actually like above the chief in here, but he had, I believe the real character had like a master's degree, and he was like high up in government and stuff like that, like somewhere below the mayor or something like that. We get Chief Bridges, played by Robert John Burke, who I only mention that because he has kind of infamous performances because he was RoboCop and RoboCop 3, the worst RoboCop.
Yeah, the RoboCop nobody wants to remember, yeah.
And he played George Mattis at Generation Kill, so that's why I remember him from stuff. Here they're asking him a bunch of questions. He's like, "Why weren't you drafted into Vietnam?" He's like, "I went to college." And like, "How do you feel about Vietnam?" He's like, "I have mixed feelings." A lot of kind of it's like they're trying to trap him into saying something, and he kind of toes the middle line. So it's, but yeah, they get to yeah, it's more played out in the book about him like trying to be the Jackie Robinson of the police department, where he's just kind of like non-violent like protest kind of thing of like don't react to racism in the department and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which in the book he also says like, well, he just said that. Like if somebody really said something, he'd like knock their block off, but it never really came to that. But
yeah, usually people don't. In real life, I found that people don't interact. People talk a lot of shit, but then when they meet someone, they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" It's never. Nobody wants to deal with that. The people that do directly are just like their own kids hate them. Like, oh, they're just terrible people.
And I don't know how things in the book. I think he said he joined when he was 19. So I don't know if he's like a prodigy and he graduated college like early, or if he just had like a associate's degree or something. But because there's also stuff in the book about like he said around this time, this is when they started making a separation in hiring people, where they stopped like looking at experience and started looking at like education background. And so it's like, so there's a lot of mad people where it's like, what, you mean I gotta get a master's degree to like make my way up through the organization?
Yeah.
They're like, yep. So he starts out, he's filing reports in the archives. Ron goes to the chief looking to like break into narcotics. He's like, "Hey, easy there, Rook. Like, you got to start at the bottom first." But he hates the records room. So come back to the records room, and there's something about like I don't know. He's like kind of acting weird and lethargic here, and I didn't know what it was about. And then because I thought when they were saying like I thought they were saying we need a tote on this guy, not a toad. And a toad obviously here means like a black suspect. I'm like, oh, that's screwed up.
I've never heard that term.
No, me neither. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't even know because it's not in the book, so I don't know where they got that from, but it must exist. I don't know.
I
Oh,
thought maybe it was an acronym, but I didn't
oh,
really follow up on it
huh, okay,
because I thought it was like a way to say something racist through an acronym, and then
yeah.
it'd be like, no, he misheard me. I didn't mean. I don't know if they were playing those games. But yeah, but also I'm like, again, I didn't. Unfortunately, my day was crammed, so I just watched the movie and came to the podcast. So everything I say in this is going to be supposition and bullshit. So
Although I think the ironic thing is because he has kind of like Ron has like a medium fro in the movie, he actually has a weird silhouette that looks like Toad from the Nintendo games.
oh, okay, well, all right.
I don't think they meant that. I interpreted that all myself. Because also Toad wouldn't exist at this time, so that would mean nothing.
Yeah, you look like something from the future that no one would have any reference to.
Oh, he's the protagonist from Tenet. He came all the way back and he did all the reverse entropy to get back here to change things.
Reverse Nintendo entropy.
And then yeah, this is like there's like because there's one old guy that uses the term toad, and there's like this younger guy who's just obviously a racist, and then he calls Ron Officer Toad, and then when he leaves, he kind of like Ron kind of does like this kung fu stuff. It's like that's him kind of getting out his aggression rather than fighting the guy for real. Oh, that never happens in the book. Like more what happens in the book isn't like it isn't like a problem with like racist officers and stuff. It's more like there's kiss asses in the department that will just glom onto anything to try to get a leg up in like promotion, and like that's the guys he hated the most.
Yes,
Because
that's
like
the real world. That's like people being openly racist to your face is like it happens, but it's like even back then you'd probably lose your job if you were like just over the top with it.
yeah.
But
Well, and the
yeah,
one guy, the kiss ass guy,
the ones are really
yeah. Well, the kiss ass guy probably was racist in some respects because he didn't like him immediately, but like Ron didn't like him because like, oh, this guy's just like a what do you call it, sycophant or something like yeah.
sycophant.
And so like when his investigation took off, like that guy tried to jump on board, and it's like you fucking moron.
Yeah, this is they have those memes where the white it's like the the guy's clenching arms in Predator
Yeah,
because it's it's Schwarzenegger and
Carl
was
Weathers.
it Carl Weathers, and then they have like these are something we can agree on, and it's a
Yeah.
white guy and a black guy, and it's like they should have that meme, and it's like suck asses or the things we hate. We can fight suck asses together.
Then we cut to it's like Ron's at home. He gets a call from the chief. He gets like a narcotics assignment, or at least he gets an assignment with the narcotics department.
Yeah.
He shows up late here, which they make it a constant thing, which I don't know. It shows up every once in a while, then at the end it's like the one white guy's late, so it's like the one time it was supposed to be important, you weren't here on time.
That's the thing, at least as I understand, probably in the context of this movie. Have you ever heard the term being on black time?
Yeah.
Okay, that's I think is what they're implying.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
obviously, but
this guy's so cool, he's on black time.
So Rana is going undercover for a speech from Stokely Carmichael, who's a former Black Panther. At least I think so.
Yeah,
Because Black Panther still exists, but it seemed like he was separate from them now.
It was described as a former.
Yeah. So yeah, then the chief here is like, yeah, he doesn't want all the black people stirred up. And the chief is being straightforward. He's not racist. He's just saying like, well, these are my observations. These are what I know. I'm not like putting sugar on this. But like here, like Ron has to kind of stand up and is like, I don't think that's what's going on, but I'll do this job for you, sir. Because yeah, I forget how long he was the only black officer in the police department, because at the end of the book it lists all the people that came after him. It was like a lot of people, and I don't know if that was like years after or like a month later. So also weirdly, he goes on to he like joins like the ATF in Wyoming and is also the only black officer there. So,
Yeah.
I
Was
think
he
it's all,
does he call like weird things in the wanted ads at the ATF? And it's like I've got the line on some militia guys. You need to join up.
Well, he's also like, I think his dad was in the army or something, and so he was like they were stationed in El Paso, Texas. Then he ends up in Colorado, and then Wyoming, and then ends up back in El Paso, Texas.
Yeah.
um, you know, not exactly where you think a lot of black people live in the mountains in Texas, but
Yeah, I mean it's kind of unusual. At
um,
least not what you think. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot
I
of
mean,
people.
I'm a white, so that's my perspective. I live around a lot of white people, so it's just. But I never lived in Colorado, so I actually don't know. So.
Yeah. I mean, I live in the Metro Detroit area, and it's like pretty white around here too. Like you say that, and people are like, "Oh, you must be the only white guy." Like, oh no, it's mostly.
um. Then Ron, we cut to Ron is getting wired up by Flip Zimmerman, that's played by Adam Driver. In the book, his name's Chuck, and he's not Jewish, so that's a whole big other thing that got added to this.
Okay, just made the character more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely works for the movie because it like gives a sort of like it puts a white person in the similar perspective of Ron here, where they have to like, oh, I'm being singled out for something that I have no say in.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy here's the other narc who he looks like, oh man, he looks like Steve Buscemi, but he's not. This guy looks and sounds like Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, I thought at first I was like, wait a minute.
Here they kind of go over like potential scenarios and troubleshooting of like what do you do if somebody puts a gun in your face, which actually happens later on, but like ironically it happens to to Flip and not to Ron. Ron shows up at a club where.
Well, that guy is that the guy Jimmy you're talking about?
Yeah,
that is Steve Buscemi.
It is.
Yeah,
holy shit!
Buscemi.
I thought that was like totally not Steve Buscemi.
It's him not acting exactly like Steve Buscemi, but just looking and acting like him incidentally.
Huh. Wow,
yeah, that's him. Very low key Steve Buscemi.
I don't know. I don't know. They must have did something to his eyes because that totally he read as Steve Buscemi, but like that's not Steve Buscemi. I don't know because I've mostly seen him lately in Miracle Workers, where like he looks very aged in those movies, and he looks like fairly like kind of young in this one. So I don't know. Huh? Okay.
He's 65. I didn't know Steve Buscemi was that old.
Used to be a firefighter.
Well, that's right. Yeah, he was a real New York firefighter, wasn't
he? Yeah.
His best role was that what was the one where he played Khrushchev?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, The Death of Stalin.
Oh, Death of Stalin. Yeah, that's a movie I still need to see.
Yeah, you do need to see it. That's funny.
It comes up so often. and there's so many memes from it.
Steve Buscemi probably a great ensemble cast, but it's like you don't really think of him as Nikita Khrushchev, but the way he plays it is like, yeah, okay. This was Nikita Khrushchev, because the only Nikita Khrushchev we know is the guy who beats his shoe on the table and shakes his fist at Kennedy during the missile crisis. But yeah, there was another calculating I survived Stalin Khrushchev that like he brings out. It's like, okay.
So Ron shows up at this club where, so I don't know, this could be like almost like, I don't know, what they call it, dead naming or something now. Because like the chief refers to him as Stokely Carmichael, but here he's changed his name to Kwame Ture, which he said he changed after he went to Africa and met with some leaders there and changed his name to that, which I didn't. I think I vaguely knew of Stokely Carmichael. I didn't know he changed his name to Kwame Ture, so something I learned. And this does happen in the book. Although I think in the book he just calls him Stokely Carmichael.
Well, he was born in like it was like British Trinidad or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he didn't come to America until he was like 10 or 11. So he was born in like Trinidad. So
Ron chats up this young lady who's like the president of the Black Student Union of Colorado College.
Yeah.
I looked up her stuff. I was like, I thought I was familiar. I thought I recognized her for something, but I did not recognize from from anything she
This
was in.
super hot
Yeah,
girl.
she's very
This is completely beautiful. It's like, of course, you're president of the student league.
attractive.
Why are you not dating someone? The most unbelievable part of this movie is that this chick was not already involved with someone.
Yeah,
before
yeah.
this book.
Yeah, she's got like crazy like anime Bambi eyes. Like,
Oh yeah, she's nuts. She's like an insanely beautiful woman. It's like, yeah, I'm so political. It's like, yeah, you are. Tell me about it, please. Talk to me
Which,
for hours about your politics.
of course, that could push people off because even like Ron's kind of like, do you ever stop talking about politics? And it's like, well, it's important. What else would I do? Kwame gives a speech about like about being black and beautiful. Like it's really kind of it's intermixed with like kind of like we need to like rise up for like the oncoming like war and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But it's mixed with this stuff that's very kind of like low key and like really reaches the people. There's
yeah,
also a lot of like interesting shots of like they'll kind of have like people in silhouette like singled out, like nobody, the crowd's not around them, and they're like looking up, and like the light's kind of like a key light on their face, and like they cut to it, and like these faces just kind of move in like it's like the opening of a Doctor Who episode.
yeah. Well, I
uh,
think it's to create an atmosphere of it's like hope and panic.
yeah,
It's kind of like, at least that's what I get out of this scene. It's like this is just like angry talk. It's like
yeah,
hope and panic. Because as we know from history thus far, there has not been some racial war in
yeah.
America. Because it's probably wouldn't be productive and not numerically favored. But
um, oh, what else was there? Crap, I had something else. Oh well, I guess maybe I'll come back to
just when Ron goes and talks to him after the speech.
Oh well, just a little bit. Well, I wrote like Ron is kind of uncomfortable, but he's like ultimately enticed by the speech. So there's like some say stuff he doesn't agree with, and there's other stuff. It's like, yeah, I agree to that. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
he is. He's a very in between guy here.
Well, I consider the his character in this. He's circumspect. It's like, yeah, he is in two worlds, but he's also like, he's not, doesn't seem particularly torn by it like you'd think. He's more like, this is interesting. I'm gonna think about that. He seems like a more of a thoughtful character,
Yeah.
who's also like an insane risk taker at the same time. He's like, but I'm thoughtful, but I'm gonna do something crazy and then think about it a while. I'm gonna stare into the camera like, yeah, I don't know if that's the direction I thought this was gonna be going. So it's a weird combination of very impulsive and very thoughtful at the same time. Like maybe a guy who thinks like, oh yeah, I got this figured out, and then he puts his foot forward. And it's like, oh, maybe not. Oh, hold on. How can I walk this back?
Um. But yeah, there's also one where it's like Kwame's like saying like it's like our lips are big, our noses are broad, our hair is nappy, and we are black and beautiful, and that kind of like rises everybody up.
Yeah.
It's like everybody can agree with that. Like, yeah, finally, yeah.
Yeah.
Not being held to the white standard that we absolutely can't go like adhere to. Um and but here
The
there's
guy that ever did that came close was Michael Jackson. That's because he had millions of dollars for plastic surgery that did not make him look cool.
No.
So it's like, yeah, that's the standard you can't and don't want, even if you have the money to reach for it.
But then they end on a punctuation of like him saying like blacks being shot down the streets by white racist cops, which that's kind of inflammatory to the cops on the other end of the wire.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's not good. better get a SWAT team out for this.
Yeah, better get some we need to get some compromise on this guy in his hotel room or something, that's what the FBI did to Martin Luther King several times.
Although Bucky talks about like how the wire works, which I guess I didn't know the intricacies of it. Because there's always like a thing in movies where it's like something happens where it's like there's feedback from the wire.
Okay.
Which shouldn't happen because they're only one way. You can't talk into them. Or you can talk into
You're
them.
not wearing headphones that are wired. Mic. That's how you get feedback.
So like they can't hear, the people wearing the wire can't hear anything from the people listening in. It's only one way. So
Yeah.
um,
Unless you're the Secret Service, have an earpiece like
yeah.
Golden Goose is heading to the helicopter. Whatever they say. They always have weird names for people.
That's after the meeting, and Ron goes and talks with Kwame, who tells him to like arm himself for the revolution, which is another thing where it's like, well, the chief's not gonna like this.
Yeah, you're saying this right into a microphone. Better get armed for the revolution, which is actually not bad advice for anyone in any situation, regardless of race, color, or creed. Yeah, you better actually be armed for whatever might happen.
And then after, like, then I think outside, Ron asks Patrice out on a date. So then we cut to like Ron's like waiting for Patrice. She comes into a bar, and then she tells like of racist cops pulling her over, and it's the racist cop from the police department. But you don't know like how much of this is like, if is it more of like, it's kind of done almost dreamlike, so you don't know if it's necessarily true or if it's how she's remembering. It's like, this was terrifying, so this is how it comes off. Because he's like a little like, I don't think our police department would do that. That sounds really bad. Why don't you tell me the officer's name and I'll look into it? Which is like, I couldn't remember their name. So, yeah. So yeah, she was, her and Kwame were pulled over. They were being intimidated and like to get out of town and stuff like that. But then he kind of like, hey, let's get your mind off that. So they head to the dance floor, and it basically becomes a music video where they're all dancing. So it's like, oh, okay, everyone's having a good time. Then we smash cut from the dance floor to debriefing with the team and the chief, and the chief's like fired up about like a group of black people being told to like commit violent revolution. So he's like, we gotta crack down on these people. But then Ron characterizes as like, the violent stuff was just rhetoric, but the mood of the group was a hopeful and positive one. So we shouldn't like be cracking down on those people, because I don't think they're going to incite revolution.
Yeah.
And so here, like, Flip and Jimmy have his back, and it's like, yeah, that's why I concur. So they don't send the SWAT team after them. And then immediately the chief moves Ron to intelligence. So we cut to the intelligence desk, and Ron finds a Ku Klux Klan advertisement in the paper. So he gives them a ring, and then he leaves his real name and phone number. And then he immediately gets a call back from Walter, which this is the spy husband from the Blacklist.
Yep.
Here Walter asks Ron for like what his story is, and then Ron just spouts like a racist speech in the middle of the police department. Everyone's like slowly churning and listening to him as he's like acting like a white guy.
Now these cops are like, we can't even talk like that. What's this guy doing? He lost his mind?
He's insulting all races and stuff like that. They're like, what the hell's going on here? And then he hangs up the phone, and he's like, I think I got an in. And then the cops all laugh at him because he's like, did you just use your real name? He's like, fuck.
Yeah. Again, this is the thing with this guy. It's like I'm smooth and clumsy at the same time. Just gave my name to the Ku Klux Klan.
Which that's how it worked in real life. That's what he did in real life. So
yeah, I could see it actually happening. That's believable. It's not like
well,
I mean, this was such a cool time to be alive. I'm going to give you my number at the police station and my actual name, because they're not. What are they going to do? Do caller ID? I mean, they don't know.
Yeah. People. It was easier to be left alone back then, or.
Oh yeah.
But also allowed them to, be anonymous over the phone. Because there's like way more phone conversations in the book that happen than what happened here. But, what else? So he gives him a real name is Ron Stallworth. So now they're looking for a Ron Stallworth. There's also like in the scene he's kind of doing the Eddie Murphy white man voice, which isn't really I don't know. I never thought of it as a white man voice. He just does a dorky voice. That's what Eddie Murphy does. It's like, I like kind of like pinching your nose. It's like, I'm a white man.
Yeah, or it's I'm gonna talk like Data, or I'm not gonna use contractions in my speech because all white people are uptight. I'm going to over enunciate words. It's like, yeah, when black people do that, it's funny, but it's like we all kind of actually talk the same way. It's just
Yeah,
they have more. They have a vernacular that's slightly different.
but in the book, he doesn't change anything. He's not trying to put on a white guy voice. He's just
No,
talking to himself. Because he actually has like his voice is actually kind of weird. He has almost like kind of whispery lisp to his voice in real
okay.
life. Like
But he's
not
not from the
heavy.
Bronx either. He's like he's a black guy from like Texas and the
Yeah,
Southwest. It's like
yeah.
he's not going to sound like
And his dad was in the army, so there's probably a lot of like kind of like enunciation stuff there going on
oh
too.
yeah,
Um,
guarantee he made those kids march around the yard too and,
because
and respect your
in
mother.
the well in the movie they play it off as like you got to weave between both worlds. So like and that's never a thing in the book. He's just him. So and no one's the
Yeah.
wiser.
No.
Um, so yeah, so he gets his hooks into the KKK. So that would be in the end of Act One. Got Act Two. We got a meeting with the sergeant about like how a black cop is going to infiltrate the KKK, which is a funny scene where he's like, "Well, obviously you're not going to the meeting." He's like, "Good call, Sarge."
Yeah. You have you've pierced the veil on that one. The thing is, the guy who's the sergeant in charge of the espionage division of the Colorado Springs Police Department is strangely naive and very intelligent at the same
Yeah,
time. He's it's an interesting character.
yeah. So then they have a meeting with the chief, which is a funny line where it's Ron's like, "With the right white man, we could do anything."
Yeah, unironically, and everyone in the room's like, "Yeah, you're right." It's a really 70s conversation. It's like, "Yeah, we can make this work."
You know how to play to your audience, don't you? Then we cut to Ron has a meeting with Flip and Jimmy to like work background on who white Ron Stallworth is. So Flip is the face, and Ron is the voice. um, Here, like Flip and Ron kind of like are like talking back and forth, and they're trying to sync to a common voice, which is a pretty
Yeah,
funny scene. Because Adam Driver has like a pretty like low voice, low tone voice, so
yeah,
even he has to like do a Eddie Murphy white character voice, where
yeah.
he's like almost Kermit the Frog kind of thing going on. Not to
Yeah, I
that
mean,
extent, but
'cause even I would have to do like, oh, you need to be like an uptight white guy. It's like
yeah.
that. I would have to raise my voice. Like I don't sound like that to the Eddie Murphy. Hi, my name is Nathan. That's not how I have warbly, tremulous, like I'm afraid to say every word or something. Um, so yeah,
Might talk.
white guy voice is weird. Even though we're completely from the Midwest, it's like
Yeah.
we don't do
I
white
don't.
guys.
I might sound like that to a stranger who I don't know. I might like over enunciate things like "Hello, I am Colin
Yeah.
Murphy." um.
Yeah, I've learned to be like kind of side-eyed and indifferent because of where I've lived the last 25 years. Like, yeah, I'm Nathan. I picked that up, and it's like, it seems to work around here.
um. And this is also where like they point out that or they have it like, oh, is Flip Jewish? And yeah, that becomes a thing later on. So
Yeah, because Steve Buscemi says you can't wear that Jew star or something,
yeah.
but you never see it. It's like,
No.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just like brought up. Um. Yeah, which that whole angle is not in the book whatsoever, but it does make a more interesting character here.
Well,
'Cause
it's
most of,
again, it's an audience character. It's like, well, this is how a black guy would feel in this situation
yes.
if you're like some kind of even a non-religious, non-practicing Jew, which we find out later. He's like, no, I just found out I was Jewish. I don't know anything about the culture or anything. So he's like, what do they call that? Non-religious Jew or
Yeah, I don't know.
something like that.
Is it non-secular? What's non-secular? I can't remember what the hell that means.
Secular Jew means you're non-religious. You're
Oh,
completely
okay.
living in the secular world, which is a non-religious world.
Okay. Let's see. Then we get Flip is going to meet with the KKK. Jimmy and Ron ride back up. A guy named Felix takes Flip to a secondary location, which here they're kind of like in the book. There's a big thing made about it because like you just like never hop in a car where you don't know where you're going. So, but that happens here. Um, Felix here is uptight about using the word the Klan, and he prefers the organization, which is
Yeah,
probably a real thing. I don't know if I've ever heard that term for, but so many things you could just call the organization.
the group.
But
Call it the Bruderschwagen. Make it really start making German shit out of it.
um, Felix recognizes like he's being followed, so he has Flip grab a shotgun under the seat and like loads it up, and so Ron like keeps going forward to try to like pretend like yeah we weren't in a tail.
Yeah.
Although here they say like did he make you? It's like there's no fucking way you could see that guy with his lights on in the middle of the night that you could tell
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, he basically like says it's like well, he doesn't say there's a black guy behind us, but yeah, that, and it's like, yeah, I don't see that happening at night. Not even with modern cars with all the like shading and
Yeah.
weird, like, you know, you don't get glare anymore, but not with that technology, It's like a Chevy Nova and you couldn't see anything. And also you're being paranoid, but you're handing a guy you don't know. It's like, yeah, hey, get a gun and load it. It's like, well, that's also operationally deficient. But whatever. But it's the Ku Klux Klan. They're stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually the truth too. It's not just saying it to like, I like the protagonists in the movie. It's like, no, they are dumb. Just a bunch of morons.
Then they cut they're at some good old boy bar. There's Confederate flags all over the place.
Yeah.
Walter's openly wearing a white power shirt.
No.
Here we get Paul Walter Hauser as Ivanhoe, who this guy is like the greatest pathetic person in the world.
Did you ever see this guy in Blackbird on Apple TV?
No, I haven't.
Oh, he played
Does he play like a serial killer or something?
Yeah, it was the guy from Where We Lived in Indiana, Larry Hall.
Okay.
And he did this voice. It was so crazy because he talked like this. He kind of had like a weirdly. It was a strangely like childlike.
Yeah.
It wasn't as effeminate as that, but it was childlike.
Okay.
He would talk like this and just look at you, and this guy channels pathetic. It was the same thing. Larry Hall was just kind of a pathetic weirdo who killed teenage girls, and was a Civil War reenactor guy and all that. But yeah, he basically every time they picked him up, he would confess, and they're like, well, this guy's stupid. Of course he's going to confess. It's not legit. But it's like, no, this was actually the guy. It's a long story. But anyway, yeah, watch Blackbird on Apple TV. It's great. This guy plays Larry Hall, and he does such a weird, wonderful voice. I don't know how he doesn't burn his voice box out. Because when you hear him talking this, it's like, no, that's not his voice. It's like, oh.
Honey and tea between takes.
Yeah. No, it's just really weird how he does it. He's the best thing in the show with a lot of good things in it. So yeah, check it out, Blackbird.
He was also in Richard Jewell, where he also played kind of a pathetic person. But it was
yes. I have only seen part of that. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but yeah, it is the same guy. So yeah, for all the pathetic fat guys of the last 50 years, this guy's got a role.
I think he has some awards. I don't know if he won an Oscar, but I think he definitely won an Emmy. I think for Blackbird. So
yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Also, Ivanhoe is a weird name because I would think that would be like kind of Native American, but I actually don't know.
It is actually a French name.
Really? Huh. Okay.
Well, Anglicanized French. Because I know a guy with that name at work from years ago. I haven't seen him in a long time, but I was like, what does that name mean? And he actually said what it was, and or at least from him, his version of it was French. And they just got Anglicanized because he was like French Canadian, or his family was like 20 years or 50 years ago, or whatever, they moved down here. But he said it's something else, but it also could be a totally different spelling, pronunciation, and origin too.
Did you know Philadelphia is Egyptian?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Weird. What were they going to call Washington, D.C.? Before, I know there was another, it was going to have like a weird, like it was going to be an Egyptian or a Roman name or something. And then they decided, well, why don't we just name it after the first guy? That's easier than, like, the capital of America is Utapanku or something like that. It wasn't that, but it was something weird.
Yeah.
Or
Ptolemaic
just,
with a P at the end or at the beginning.
or we just call it like New Rome or something. It's like, come on, guys, that's right on the nose. Washington's name, a good old British name, Washington.
Here we got Walter, not to be confused with Paul Walter Hauser. That's the actor. Walter, the KKK guy. Because Ivanhoe's like trying to insinuate that they're gonna blow up some rally or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Walter like comes in and emphasizes like we're a non-violent organization.
Yeah.
Which is
it's like, hey, don't show all our cards up front, retard.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this is the problem with, again, another problem, like we learned from the movie with where Patrick Stewart, Green Room.
Yeah.
Your operational security will always be blown by the morons in your racist hate group. They can't keep their mouth shut because their dad didn't like them, so they always got to talk like tough guys. That's why they're in a racist hate group. And you're just trying to sell methamphetamines. And like, damn it.
But this is like the weird genius dance of the organization where it's like obviously what they stand for is hate and killing people, but it's like on paper we're a nonviolent organization.
Yeah. We want to educate the masses and you know, have peaceful racial what's it called? Racial coexistence. That's a term, which basically means you're on your side of the fence and we're on ours. And of course, how that actually applies, because we had Jim Crow in America, is all your schools suck. You live on the shitty end of town. You don't get any of the tax money, but you better pay the taxes. So it's like, this never works out.
Although
deny that, it's like, no, we just want to live in separate prosperity.
There's a really interesting racist in the book that's not covered in this movie, where he was a firefighter who was basically openly racist, except when he's on the clock. Like he didn't. He
would die for, like, you know, they're all my brothers when we're on the clock.
Yes,
I would run into a burning building to save this guy. Off the clock, I'm just gonna blast the N-word at this guy.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, those weirdos. Yeah. That's an interesting. What do you call that?
Dichotomy.
Yeah, it's like when you have two separate thoughts at the same time in your head. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, like he even gave mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to like a black person on the job and stuff like that. It's like, okay, no, he's clearly doing his job, but it's like
cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a fun word.
I like to throw that out every time with somebody. He's clearly suffering from cognitive dissonance because he knows I'm right, but he's afraid to admit it.
But basically, like, the city couldn't fire him because he did not discriminate on the job. He only discriminated off the clock.
The human mind is so cool. It really just like I can't invent a policy to address this. No matter how hard I try.
And then Walter takes Flip to like the back to fill out some paperwork to join the organization. Where again, this is like the on paper KKK stuff where it seems organized, except it's not really.
You got to be able to read and write to have a real clerical backbone to your organization. That's at least it helps. I hear. I'm not making that up, people. They're literally this dumb.
Also, I think here I think there's a lot of stuff about Felix calling Flip a Jew here, or insinuating that he's Jewish, just to like try to like suss things out. Because there's like there's also an interesting thing here, because I think Felix really represents like the violent side of the KKK, except in the book they're not really violent, they're just kind of dumb.
yeah
But there was a group that they were trying to merge with called like Posse Comitatus or something like that.
That's a bad group. Yep.
And so like they were guys that like they had weapons and could make explosives, and really their big thing is that they were dodging taxes. These were like the original what do you call that? Sovereign citizen guys.
Yep.
Out
of Posse Comitatus came that group, the what's it called? The Sword and the Arm of the Lord or something. And those are the people that like they robbed banks professionally just to acquire weapons to fight a huge race war. Really scary dudes, like, you know, the kind of white separatists they say that they're afraid of now, but they can't ever seem to find anyone. But like they find a group of morons like the people that were going to murder our governor here or something. It's like, yeah, these guys looked the part, but it's like, and then you find out what they did and what they were planning to do. It's like, well, yeah, they're stupid. They were going to use firecrackers to create a distraction and then kidnap Governor Whitmer and then what, decapitate her and become the kings of Michigan. What do they think? Yeah, where's the follow through here? But no, yeah, the Posse Comitatus and the Lord and the Sword people, they killed a lot of people. They were scary. I think it was the FBI finally ran them down and just had a big shootout with them. But yeah.
So that was like in the book. That was the thing. Like if these guys merge, then they're going to be dangerous. But right now,
dangerous.
Really the only thing, and really they didn't really see eye to eye. But what they liked the most was dodging taxes. That's what they were like. We want your rule book on how to dodge taxes.
Bleed the beast. Kill the Zionist occupy
government, Zog.
Yeah. Zog. We must bleed Zog.
That's in the book. That's not mentioned here in the movie, but that's in the book.
No, they don't want to give people too many ideas. Because it'll all come back, like we said. We've seen it all.
Oh yeah, it's embarrassing how this is exactly the same shit with just a different name on it.
I feel about this like Joe Rogan feels about joke thieves. Like, damn it, come up with your own material. Just please and excite me for just a second. Just a microcosm of original thought. Is it always the same thing on loop?
Yeah. And now people just still fall for it, but that's
and they still fall for it. And that's the thing, is like, not only is it uncreative and dumb, but there's like, they're making, the only good thing about this, the sad thing about it too, is because I'm so into studying weird shit like this, you can never really make money off of it.
Yeah.
It's like, I should get into real estate or something, because like, you can never profit off this. Even the QAnon quacks didn't profit from it, clearly. I mean, they tried to. I think they wanted to. That was their end game. But then it's like, oh shit, they're going into the federal building. We better shut up now. We don't want to go to prison for the rest of our lives. Damn it. Overplayed our hand again. And these morons actually did it. They're storming the Capitol. Like, fuck. Well, I better cash out on these NFTs.
So we cut from the meeting with the KKK to a debrief with I think it's with the chief and sergeant or something. Yeah. So they need to investigate further to figure out whether the KKK in Colorado are actually capable of violence. So that's what they're really concerned with.
Which now in the book, when did they call the FBI? Because usually when you get to this level, especially in the 70s, which was a crazy violent time of people getting killed over shit like this, you would involve the FBI. Did they ever involve the FBI in the book?
It came so it's kind of a weird thing, and it's actually like how it's described in the book is like exactly how it is in movies, where somebody representing the FBI who says they're not the FBI says, you can go into this room, you can make notes, but you cannot take this file out of this room.
Okay, yeah, that's actually, whole star chamber. I've heard so many versions of that. It's like, that's got to be true.
And because it was like almost like I think it was almost like 2 years later that he got to like in contact with the FBI, and really it was about like the Posse Comitatus. Like that was like, these guys are dangerous. Do you have anything on them? I was like, nope. But anyways, come to this back room.
Officially, no. However, see, nowadays you just like send a thumb drive to someone. And it's like, this will disintegrate after 5 minutes, so take notes.
Then we cut to Ron has dinner with Patrice. Here there's talk of cops. He says he's in construction here, so he's like, you can see like the dilemma where like he doesn't want to lie to her, but he knows he can't just say I'm a cop, because that's a non-starter. So
I just can't lose this hottie.
Although you can see him working in his mind where he's like playing mind games where it's like, I'm not a cop, I'm an investigative, I'm a detective. Cops are different things. I use my mind. I'm working for the people to stop violence ahead of time.
Yeah, I'm a cop, but I'm on the side of like the people.
He's the preventative maintenance cop, where it's like why a lot of people hate cops is because they can pretty much only do anything after something really bad happens.
Yeah, I'm the proactive instead of the reactive cop, and also I'm black, so you should like me for that. I know you're not going to like that I'm a cop, but we can't live in anarchy because that doesn't work either. I'm sure, like I could imagine just like all these gears turning in his head. But it's ultimately it's like, oh, please don't let this hot gal walk out on me.
Oh, also obviously, well, I guess not obviously. The Patrice character is completely made up. There's no romance in the book whatsoever. So.
No, there never is in real life. There's
You just have to do that for movies because that's how movies work. So.
The only sex that exists in universes like this, especially in the 70s, is like kind of like the desperate like sex that like the KKK people would have. It's like, you hate people too, right? Okay, let's our hatred is like, it's like it's always weird and dark because these people have wasted their whole lives.
Yeah.
Um,
Then Ron gets a phone call from Walter. There's another meeting. I hear that we cut to the sergeant. And he introduces who David Duke is. He's the Grand Wizard of the KKK. And they talk about
played by Topher Grace.
Yeah.
Like really weird.
And then when you see side by side pictures, they look exactly they look
very convincing. It's like, holy shit, I didn't see this coming.
So yeah, he's just basically introducing the audience like who David Duke is and like about him like getting into politics and stuff. Which in the book they have his like many failings, but I think was elected. I think he's elected to like not the Senate. What's the other one?
No, he didn't get a federal. He almost did.
There's like only one thing he was successful at. Everything else failed, but he was a government official somewhere for a while. But everything else on a larger scale didn't work. But
he ran in a special election in 1989 in the Louisiana House.
Okay.
And he changed from a Democrat to a Republican to win the seat.
Okay.
And that was the one where, let's see, David Duke ran for Senate, and George H.W. Bush, the father, like stopped campaigning against Bill Clinton to go campaign in Louisiana to make sure David Duke did not become a senator. Louisiana.
Huh. You would never see that nowadays.
No. That's the World War II Republicans.
Yeah.
As like, yeah, wouldn't be a good thing to have. Well, because I mean, George W. Bush hated all the religious wackiness. George H.W. Bush's Republican Party was always like just a bunch of bankers and good old boys from Texas, like running the country. He didn't want like racists and psychopaths running the Republican Party. So yeah, of course he campaigned against this guy. And also I think George H.W. Bush probably, I mean, it was just like embarrassing to him. It just like unsettled him that like, no, this is not in the same party as me. I don't know how moral a guy he was. I mean, I can kind of look at some of the stuff he's been associated with when he was in intelligence and stuff. I'm like, well, he kind of had amorality. Like he was aware of the concept. It loosely spun around in the back of his head with all the other stuff he was doing. But yeah.
But I mean, most of David Duke's like running for stuff was just to get attention, and so like that's all he did it for. So it was never actually meant to be successful. Which that's why people are all about deplatforming now. It's like, don't give these people a platform.
Yeah.
Which, also runs directly into freedom of speech.
See, that's the whole thing where you get into like, well, it's just like the idea of the one thing I do know about besides personal experience is just like revealing the idiocy is, remember when we did the Blues Brothers, the original one? Okay, and the Illinois Nazis.
Yeah.
Okay, that was based on a real thing that happened in Skokie. I think we talked about during that podcast, like the Skokie, Illinois Nazi rally. And remember the American Civil Liberties Union, like which was all run by Jewish guys. They were like, yeah, the Nazis have that right. It's under freedom of speech. They have a right to have this rally, and they fought for the right, and they won. The court couldn't deny them the right to have the permit for the Skokie Nazis to have a rally in Illinois. And when they finally had it, even the Nazis were like, "Oh, this sucks. They don't like us." It's like this isn't really what we wanted. This isn't working out. And the people that were really against the Nazis having this rally thought that like, oh, if they have this rally, all of a sudden every white person in Illinois is going to like rally to the Nazi cause or whatever. And it's like none of that happened. Everyone saw that they were just idiots. And most of those people, like either they or their father, fought against these assholes in war. And it's like, yeah, it didn't turn out to be the rise of the Nazi Party of Illinois to take over the state, like people who are against it thought. And the ACLU was like, yeah, we fought this fight, and everyone was like, well, yeah, you're all a bunch of Jewish guys. Why? And it's like it was always first principles, and first principles means it's like I stand for the freedom of speech, right, regardless of what speech is going on. The principle of freedom of speech is more important than like you not being offended or you not feeling this way about it or that group not feeling that way about it. It is the right about of the freedom of all speech, which, believe it or not, wildly unpopular position to take. If people are not happy with you, it's like, oh, he's standing on first principles. Great. It's like, no, nobody likes that because that means all the morons and idiots can come and say the most hateful, heinous shit, stuff you wouldn't even think like, why would human beings talk like that? And trust me, I have a really rough sense of humor. And sometimes some of the stuff people say is like, why does your mind even go there? Jesus Christ, it's like,
Yeah,
because
I always see these people as like they're just clamoring for attention. And
yeah,
my thing is always just starve them of attention, but it doesn't seem to be enough. They seem to get their attention no matter what. So.
well, no, there's all because, like I said, it becomes black magic. It becomes like, and I don't. Okay, well, let's say it becomes dark magic. It becomes like there is a power to this, and you realize once you see it, like, oh, this is the man behind the curtain. There is no power to this. These are just people saying horrible things for the sake of saying horrible things. And if you ask them, if you pin them down, if you go like real like John Ronson style, like I want to get inside the head, or not John Ronson, the other guy, the guy who went and hung out with the Baptist church people who always protested soldiers' funerals about
Oh yeah.
God loves it when a soldier dies because we support gay marriage. Those people.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to embrace the hate. I want not embrace it. I want to understand the hate. I want to see what it is. And who's the guy who did that? He's the other awkward British guy that does all these documentaries. And I can't think of his name. But anyway, yeah, but you find out once the camera's on these people, it's like, yeah, they don't really have anything to say other than the shocking thing they're saying. There's no ideology behind that, like, oh, this makes sense to me. I now too am a part of it. Never happens. Almost never happens unless you're just emotionally and psychologically damaged enough to where, like, yeah, this does appeal to me.
I also seem to work on the classic bully Ponzi scheme of I'm going to get under your skin to the point and like basically harass you and assault you, and then when you finally fight back, you're at fault.
Yeah. That too is the other that part of it of like the reverse victim card, the Uno reverse victim card. It's like, you punched me in the face, you're violating my rights. And it's like, you said you were happy my mom was dead or whatever. It's like, of course I'm going to punch you in the face. It's like, Bob, you're violating my rights. Yeah, you get in that whole don't roll around in the mud with the pig because the pig likes it in the mud type shit. But yeah, anyway, back to my point is like when you stand on first principles, nobody likes you.
Yeah.
When you're a first principles guy, everyone hates you. The right hates you. The left hates you. That's why groups like the ACLU are loved and hated, just depending on what the issue is and who it appeals to. Because the ACLU will say pornography is protected speech, and our political system in this country, and most people, including me, when it comes to things like pornography, let's say it's like, well, you know what, when you see it, and that's like, that sounds perfectly rational. Not a good first principles argument, though, because it's like, no, it's a form of speech and it should be protected. It's like, well, should my 8-year-old see it? Well, no, but then it comes back to, you know, when you see it. So yeah, it's really easy just to get wrapped into, just get your guts twisted up into farm machinery trying to understand all this stuff.
How far do you believe?
Yeah. I just call it first principles, and it's the loneliest position. You'll be just a lonely guy on a mountaintop with that flag, and like everyone is throwing rocks at you from the left, from the right, yeah, even from the middle. The centrist guys are like, "Hey, look, I can't be all things to all people as long as you're saying this is a principle." So you're screwing my thing up. So yeah, you'll be alone. You'll be Job in the Bible. It's like I have developed the ability to perfectly out argue everyone, and then everyone hates you. It's like, congratulations, you've done it.
So we cut to it's Saturday with the clan with Flip as Ron. There's more Klansmen at this meeting. Felix kicks his hateful wife out of the thing. She so jovially says all like horrible racist things here. It's like it makes her seem even more evil than everybody else. 'Cause she has like a smile on her face where it's like Felix is just like dripping with vile. It's like actually she seems more evil than him.
Yeah, because Felix is just like just hate.
Yeah.
It's just every word out of his mouth is anger. But she's like jovial.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't wait to start doing this work. I can say almost no other line.
No.
But it's like the way she says it is like, okay, who would like some some pie? I made some pie for everyone. And it's like she also wants to like put people into furnaces. With the same zeal as she makes pie. So it's weird.
They're planning a cross burning, which which in the book is that they actually give like a history lesson on like the Ku Klux Klan because I didn't know the origins because I didn't bother. I don't care.
Yeah,
it's like I'll just ignore them.
Believe me, we're not as hated as everyone the Ku Klux Klan would hate, but like our ancestry is like Irish Catholic and stuff. Is like they don't like us either, because remember Protestant is also one of the words. So.
But like so like why they have those robes and stuff is like it was born out of like they're trying to pretend to be like the ghost of Confederate soldiers coming back for revenge.
Yep.
And like it basically almost like went away because they were just thought, well, this is ridiculous, and then they say like birth of a nation like just gave rise to it again. It's like
well, it goes back to like Greek things. It's like the Ku Klux was like some kind of, I forget the whole history of the Ku Klux Klan, but you can go to Wikipedia and look it up.
But also like the cross burning wasn't like a terrorist act in the beginning. It was just like, well, we're just like spreading Christianity and we're just letting it be known.
It's a lighthouse of Christ. It's like, look, everyone can see this giant cross burning for miles.
Yeah.
It's like our love of Jesus is why we do this.
Yeah, something about like the
things that are justified that.
There's something about like the light on the hill reaches the most or something like that.
Yeah, it's like the Calvary cross. There's always this thing. People seek the light and
but then at some point it just became purely just intimidation and terrorism. So Felix takes Flip to see his gun collection, which that's also the thing in the book. It's not because there's not Felix character doesn't exist, but like the person that like Ron and Chuck are the most afraid of are the gun nuts. It's like, okay, dude, because they're just like want to have sex with their guns and like want to show everybody. So here that's
weird, and take it from somebody who owns a lot of guns. It's like I've never talked about my guns. They don't have names. I don't try to stick my penis in the barrel. Like, yeah, guys that are into guns like that is like, oh yeah, you're another one of those guys. Like, Dad didn't really give you a lot of guidance in your life, did he? Because this is what you're doing.
Then he's still being tested. Like Felix is testing Flip to see if he's Jewish or something. He takes him in a back room where there's a lie detector test. Here Felix pulls out a gun and he's like itching it with his head and pointing around all over the place.
Yeah, the whole itching loaded guns with your head thing is like a movie trope. I've seen lots of people.
Yeah, well, you just know that's a dumb person. Although it almost never ends with them accidentally pulling the trigger and shooting themselves in the head because you have to continue the scene. Although that would be amazing.
Hey, I want to know if you're, and then his head explodes. Okay, I guess you will never know. And it's really more effective to scratch with your fingernails because the gun never. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, unless it's like got a lot of squared off corners, but then that's terrible for Carrie because it'll get snagged on the way out.
Yeah, the front side will just that'll tear skin rather than itch it.
But it's all like holding a gun sideways. It's like, well, it looks cool. It's like, hell yeah.
And if you talk to the Chinese, apparently that was a method with their broom handle. What was it? They had some. It was like a 3-round
Mauser.
It was a 3-round burst. And like they had some method where it's like you hold it sideways, and then the recoil would like move it along in a sweeping pattern. So if you're trying to shoot a bunch of people in front of you, you would hold it sideways to use the recoil to move it to the next target.
Okay, yeah. The
uh,
Asians needing to come up with something like that.
I don't know if that's true. That was a Metal Gear Solid, which that stuff is always like, is this true or a myth? And it's probably both.
Does it feel true? It's like that's what you ask yourself.
I feel like it was researched. So
Yeah.
there's that. Somebody came up with this method. Did anybody actually use it? Well, here they are. So
Well, if you're talking the Chinese Civil War, and like I could see them like actually like, oh yeah, you can kill more people with a gun this way. Considering I think they might have killed more people than died in all of World War II in their own
yeah.
country. It's like, oh yeah, they probably had to develop some techniques.
Here we learn that Felix is a Holocaust denier, which Flip here turns it around on Felix, which I thought
Oh
was really
yeah, this was crazy.
because he's like, "Are you crazy?" And then like then Flip's like saying like, "I think that was a great moment in history, people coming together to kill Jews or whatever." And I was like, "Oh crap, that's an interesting turnaround on that idea."
Yeah, Holocaust denial has always been the way it's been explained to me, or at least the way I've seen it portrayed, is it's always like, oh, it's the final mountain of like you're just abandoning your humanity. But in this movie, it's like, oh no, they turn it around. It's like, yeah, don't be a dumbass and deny our greatness. It's like, oh wow, okay, that's really on your toes thinking.
Yeah, with a gun to your head.
Yeah, especially when somebody's pointing a gun at you and they have like a oscilloscope they want to hook you up to or whatever.
Ron is like listening. He's like in a car, like off, like a block away. He's listening in, and here he realizes, because I think Flip says something about having a gun pointed at him, and that's when he's like, "Oh crap!" And then he runs and creates a distraction by throwing like a potted plant through the window, and then Connie, Felix's wife, is like saying like, "That black man threw a pot through the window," and then they go give chase, which Felix runs out and he starts to like want to shoot the gun at Ron's car, and here Flip does the cool thing of grabbing the gun and then just like emptying the magazine, but like intentionally missing the car. It's like, yeah, I'm more of a bad.
See it like bouncing off the ground, like
Yeah.
the bullets, like clearly, which is still like wildly dangerous for a cop
Yeah.
to do in a neighborhood. It's like,
Yeah.
where are those bullets going? But you know, it's a movie.
Which I first saw that in Deep Cover. I think Omar Epps' character does that, which that was the first time.
That's right. That's right.
Where they're like trying to do an initiation, and so he's like, "Well, I'm a cop. I can't kill somebody," and then he just rolls with it and just shoots around the person, which is not a great idea, but it'll make the gang think you're like, "Oh, this guy's crazy. We should have him." So,
Guy's hardcore. Really, the best thing is shoot him again. His soul is still dancing. That'll let the guys know it's like, oh, this guy's deeply now. Oh, doesn't Felix also say something about like you do something weird with your penises, like they're all circumcised?
Oh yeah. He wants to see his dick, and then
which is like vaguely gay, and also like, oh, if you think all Jews are circumcised, that means like what 90% of American males are Jews. It's like, what? But I don't know if was everyone circumcised back then? What's the history of circumcision? I don't know. I just assumed everyone was.
Yeah.
And then I'm finding out later in life, it's like, no, that's an American thing. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then it's like, why do you do that? It's like, I don't know, because I don't want to know the joy of a urinary tract. I guess.
Then we cut to, it's like a debriefing, and of course the sergeant is really pissed because there's shots fired in a neighborhood. And he's like, this investigation's going sideways, and then basically he has to like, yeah, Ron's like, well, what if nobody ever found out about this? It's
yeah,
like,
what if the chief ever knew? It's like, what? Oh, okay, actually, yes. Just this one time.
Of course, this never happens in the books. No. And basically anything with Felix never happens in the book. So.
Yeah, what I've learned about reading like cop books about like real stuff that happened, like guys that go undercover into like psychotic biker gangs, as soon as like death is in the air or we're going to murder someone is discussed, like in movies, they'll always take it right to the line and our main character will find some brilliant, like, I'm a CIA super spy way around it.
Yeah.
But in real life, it's like he's calling the chief, like, yeah, they're gonna go kill this guy. Okay, we're rolling these guys up. Like that's what happens in real life, because you don't, if you have knowledge of someone about to be murdered and or killed, or you have to take action that could accidentally lead to the death of either the people involved or random citizens, like they're pulling the chute on that right away because there's way too much liability in the real world for that to happen. And also you could like, no one has that kind of faith. Like, we're just going to let this play out. I believe in you, Dave.
We need to get to the top. We need to get to a RICO case on this.
Nope, doesn't happen. Get RICO cases through wiretaps, not shooting white people. That's not how it works. Yeah, it's exciting in movies. I understand why people believe these things, but yeah.
Then we cut to Flip is angry about like having his life threatened over like ridiculous racists. I think this is also where he kind of like is like realizing that like, you know, I had no connection to being Jewish, but now because I have to look in the mirror of these like terrible people, like now it's like, well, clearly I am Jewish compared to these people. So
yeah, that was a really sad moment for the character. Like, it's just, he was like, I'm generically a Jew, but I have no connection to it because I wasn't raised that way. And now everyone hates me because I'm this thing and I have to listen to this all the time.
Yeah.
And of course,
and he has to pretend to be like going along with it and like spout other like horrible rhetoric too. So.
And of course, the Ron Stallworth character's looking at him like, "Yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah.
What do you think I've been talking about?"
Congratulations on being a black man.
And then of course, you know, the best Adam Driver just walks out of the room angry, which is what Adam Driver does the best.
Yeah.
His anger is the best, even as like, what was he in Star Wars?
Kylo Ren.
Kylo, yeah, the Kylo anger was the best when the stormtroopers just look at each other like, "Nope, man, we're out of here. Whatever's going on, we're not doing this."
Then we cut to Topher Grace as David Duke. Ron talks with him over the phone.
So weird.
He's trying to get his membership put through, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we've been having trouble with our administration. I'll get that put through for you." Which is he really did talk to David Duke several times over the phone.
That's nuts.
Yeah, basically
the coolest thing ever.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, it was a great reaction in the movie because he's like, oh, "Holy shit, I'm talking to David Duke."
He puts his hand over the phone like, "Guys, come here."
Yeah, basically all the phone stuff with David Duke happens in the book.
Good, that's amazing.
And then when he gets out of there, he gets over the phone call and he walks out of the room and he crosses the racist cop in the hallways, Landers, who Landers like shoulder checks him and he drops his stuff and just make you hate Landers even more. So.
Yeah.
Then we cut to a gun range with the Klan. Now they're mad about a gay bar existing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat thing. Well, they don't really follow up on it. I wrote, Ron goes to the range to pick up all the spent rounds as evidence, but doesn't really do that. He more like looks at the racist targets they were shooting at, and it's kind of like a somber moment for him. But also I have here, like, they clearly show him, he shot at Ron's car, intentionally missed, and here he's like an expert shot, which I don't know what his background is supposed to be, but like the real Adam Driver was a Marine, so he would really know how to shoot stuff.
Some kind of vague Vietnam background, I think.
Yeah.
For the character.
Yeah, for the character, yeah.
Adam Driver
wasn't in Vietnam.
That'd be he's a time traveler.
Him and the protagonist, they keep going back.
In his like Marine Corps picture.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's like, it's exactly what you described. Like, just like yours. It's like, it's the worst, best picture ever.
Then we cut to Patrice and Ron are hanging out again. They're talking about black cops and pop culture. They're talking about coffee and Shaft and stuff like that. Which I think in the movie, this is like 78, so like all that stuff would have been out by now, I think. So
yeah.
Computers are starting to come out. So,
yeah, you're hearing about computers.
So here there's like, they kind of like, he talks around stuff about like struggle about whether like a black cop can change things from the inside, and she's like, no, they'll never let you do it. So, then we cut to, it's basically later in the day, and Felix shows up at Ron's apartment, and Ron answers the door but doesn't say anything. So because Felix just went to the Ron Stallworth address in the phone book. You're looking at, of course, this stuff never happens in the book. So
no. Guys aren't this smart.
And this gets addressed with Flip and the Klan at a later meeting. We cut to Ron gets his KKK card. The investigation is picking up, which just is a real thing. Although I'm not sure if the card in the movie is made or if it was the real one. In the book, he says it's lost in paperwork somewhere. He doesn't know where it is.
But... Oh, I'd never lose that.
Oh, this is where Flip talks about being Jewish but not being raised Jewish and how this is bothering him that he has to be with these like hateful people and making him, feel different.
Just channel Mark Maron through the whole speech. It sounded like something like Mark Maron would say. It was kind of fun.
Yeah. We got to Ron meet with Patrice and there were KKK flyers they plaster around the Black Student Union. Then we cut to Flip and Ivanhoe are on a stakeout. And Ivanhoe talks about how to burn a cross, like something about leaving a cigarette down next to a pack of matches. It'll give you time.
Yeah, you got to soak it in kerosene the night before. It's just like the science of cross burning. But it's ultimately like, I love the dialogue because it's like, yeah, it's a cowardly act. You got to get away. You're not going to stand there and own that cross burning. It's like, yeah, you got to run away.
And here, like, Ron is coordinating, like, they're just having, like a few cop cars just circle around and make it look like cops are all over the place, and so they don't initiate the cross burning, so... Because there's too many cops out, so...
And they're driving a truck with a giant cross in the back of it. It's like, yeah, the cops are stupid. They're not going to put this together. Like, I wonder who's going to burn the cross. Maybe the guys with a giant cross in the back of the truck?
You're
flipping... need to have a two-piece cross. It's just wood.
Yeah. Have it flip out like a switchblade.
Yeah.
Here,
big cross.
Flip questions.
It's all of a sudden the movie becomes Evangelion.
Here Flip's talking with Ivanhoe, wondering how many military guys are in the KKK, and he says there are a couple, which again, this is close to NORAD. And at the shooting range, they point out some people that were just kind of like off in the corner. They didn't seem to be necessarily with the group, but they were focused on as being with the group.
Yeah, this is when Walter becomes suddenly like security guy. Like, who are they? It's like, we can't talk about that. It's like, it was never operational before. It was always Felix. Now all of a sudden Walter's like, yeah, we can't talk about them. I'm assuming like they were the guys that we hear about later that like stole plastic explosives or whatever.
Well, no, those are different guys, but
those are different guys. Okay.
I think in the book there was a thing, and I think that was the posse guys that got hold of like some. It was at Fort Carson. They stole some machine guns and explosives, but I think they were like immediately caught, so it was never got used on anything.
Yeah, it's like I said, like that's never actually happened in like American history, but in movies, it's like you think this shit's just laying around all the time. It's like, no, when that happens, people immediately crap their pants and it goes code red because we're gonna find whoever did this. They're going to prison for eternity.
So yeah, a truck pulls up with a cross in it. David Duke's voice is like playing over. They stop the cross burning because they think there's too many cops around. Then it kind of cuts to David and Ron are on the phone, which I think it's like, I thought he was like making a speech, but I think he was just talking to Ron this whole time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was kind of, I remember that scene. It's like, is he talking to a group or is he just like talking to Ron?
Yeah.
And by Ron, we mean Adam Driver or it's like,
he's talking to the real Ron.
I thought this was something he was saying in the truck. They were listening to in the truck. Okay,
yeah, I thought that was the same thing. Yeah, I don't know. It could be both. It could be both.
I don't know why that matters to me, but it was also like, this is.
Well, because it kind of seemed like, he's just broadcasting and anybody can hear this, and then it was like, it's on the phone. But I don't know. Could be both. Yeah, that's also interesting because because in the book, Ron thinks these people are ridiculous and stupid, but he's like, if they think you're white, they are like agreeable and like normal people to talk to.
Yeah,
Which is like sad. It's like, oh, you could have been a normal person, but you chose hate.
yeah. I mean, that's what's weird about these people. Like I said, again, I've met these people because I've always because in the press, if you read about these people, it is like, oh, they are sorcerers of a they have a magic power that can like bend minds to evil, whatever. And then you meet them, and it's like they're just disappointing and fat, kind of like me. It's like, oh, okay, you're not some powerful person, but they are powerful because like a bunch of other dumbasses believe them,
Yeah.
and dumb people in large numbers do damage. But it's never like everyone wants it to be like, I don't know, it's almost like it's like a boogeyman. It's like you really want this to be like, I'm fighting evil, and this is, and evil is like, it has 1,000 faces, and it's mutating all the time, and it's we have to everyone could be a part of it, and we've got to keep jumping around to spot the evil. It's like, no, it's real evil. It's real easy to spot. It's generally disappointing when you find it. It's like, oh, okay,
Oh,
you're
yeah, well,
just hoping for that.
and why Ron got so far like with getting information out of these guys is that he just placated their ego and they would tell him almost anything.
Yeah,
Because he's like, I forget the main guy I forget the guy in the book. It's basically Walter here. It's a different character. Like the character in the book, he's like, he's in the army, and so that's why he's like trying to like hand over the chapter to Ron because it's like, my duty is kind of taking me away from this. We need somebody who can like commit to it. Um, and so like he thought that guy was just a kiss ass, and all he had to do was like say what a great leader he was and stuff like that, and he would just tell him everything.
yeah,
um,
yeah. When you appeal to people's egos, you gain a lot of insight into who they are.
yeah.
Unfortunately, it's almost always disappointing. It's like, I want the power. I want to know the magic words that make you who you are, because I want to be like you. And it's like, so I'm just going to literally surgically attach myself to your ass until I can be like you. And then you find out what they are. And if you're a person with any kind of depth of character or soul in your body, you're like, I don't want to be this because this is like ultimately empty.
Yeah.
But there's some people who can't wait to be that. But these are the same people that like never have conversations with themselves and just
Yeah.
think in straight lines all the time. It's like there's a reason these bureaucracies of sycophancy exist, and they're never good ones. It's always like this is where mediocrity is born. This is where it comes from. If you wonder why everything sucks, it's because people like this just follow. But people like that are also disciplined, and they follow rules and they do things right. Because if everyone was like, say, for instance, like me, just cynical about everything, it's like nothing would work. The lights wouldn't turn on, and it's easier to pretend you're outside it all and laugh at everyone. But yeah, this is how human systems of power develop and work. Even the dumb ones, which the KKK is a prime example of a dumb one. But yeah.
So yeah, David and Ron are keep talking here. Ron's like reinforcing segregation. He even says like, I like black people. I just think they should have their own place, separate from ours.
Yep, like I said earlier, the two worlds that will exist co-equally, they never do.
No.
Crow has shown us that they never do. Apartheid shows us that they never do.
We cut to Patrice is in the library researching the KKK. Then we cut to Walter is on the phone with Ron. Walter wants him to take over the leadership of the Colorado KKK. We cut to a meeting where Flip is there as Ron, but the group isn't thrilled about this. But Flip says like his dad is like is sick. He says like in Dallas, and they flips it around to make it's like, oh, I thought you said he was in El Paso.
And well, the plane connects in Dallas. Yeah. It was like on the fly.
Because this is where like being a one-way thing says, because it cuts to Ron and goes like El Paso, like fuck, but like the Flip doesn't hear that, but he rolls with it anyways. Like, oh, it connects, and like, what did I say?
Yeah, considering the beautiful like pivot reverse he did with Holocaust denial, I was like, this seemed almost lame and almost barely landed, metaphorically, but hey, you don't always hit home runs, trust me.
Then we have like this was like a real phone call from the book. Ron has another phone call with David Duke, where he basically dares David Duke to convince him how white he is, and he explains like enunciation of like black
Yeah.
people and white people. Which even in the book where he says like, well, David Duke's not wrong, but it still doesn't mean I'm. But he's not wrong about like that the different dialect existing, but he's wrong in the instance of Ron.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same conversation we just tried to have about how, like, we don't sound like white guys. You know, we had the same version of this conversation 30 minutes ago. And probably also wrong, but I don't know.
But yeah, this is just a fun scene where it's like, the ultimate racist can't tell who a white person is, so it must be meaningless.
Yeah. Imagine that, like the subtext of that. Like, yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Then we got it's like intercut. We get a phone call from Felix.
It's almost like David Duke might be a fraud who's just
yeah.
Imagine such a strange concept.
Flip shows up at Felix's house. Felix and the guys are in like the gun den. He gives Flip a gun. I think there was like a machine gun on the table, but I'm not actually sure. I think there was like an M4.
It looked like
an
M60, like from the Vietnam era.
Yeah. And Felix talks to him about like war coming to Colorado. And then we cut to like Felix and
running through the mountains out of breath, like war, like all these fat asses from the KKK.
Wolverines
fight the army. Yeah. Good luck with that. This gun is heavy. It's like, yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Would it be easier just to vote?
Then we get to like Felix is in bed with his wife. They're both dreaming of killing minorities. Which this scene is actually extra sad because you can tell he doesn't love his wife. He just loves hate, and she's along for the ride.
Yeah, and let's talk about his wife really quick. And I'm going to qualify this by saying I'm a fat person, so I can say these things. I'm not a fat woman, but in the continuum of this movie, Felix's wife is this really fat lady who likes to make cakes and pie and likes to talk about killing, and like it's fun. And it's like, these people totally don't love each other, but they need each other desperately.
Yeah.
Which is like, actually, if you've ever looked into any of these groups and how they intermingle and how they work together, it's like, that is true. That becomes a thing where they don't really love each other. It's just like, if she was like really hot and svelte, it would be equally as weird. But in the context of this movie, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's like Felix, who's this like, I'm a badass, and I don't trust anyone, and I think everyone's a whatever, A, B, or C, and I hate them all. But then he's married to a woman who like outclasses him. Like, they could never fight professionally because their weight classes would not be close to each other. But yet they share this common cause in hatred. But
also when she gets put into action, she's like clumsy and pathetic too. So it's just extra
like
sad.
Would be. Which I can laugh at that and see that as funny, but also if I was put into action, I would fail as badly as she did. But I know that about myself, which is why I'm just a coward who sits on the sidelines and acts cynically in everything, because it's fun, and I'm not in any physical danger that way.
Then we cut to it's Ron's meeting with a federal agent. There's like I don't know, it's like an abandoned building with a waterfall on it. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, again, a very Oliver Stone scene. Big bulky cars, guys in ill-fitting suits talking, in a very like serious way, but with grins on their faces. Like, I'm lying, you're lying, we're all lying, and we're cool. That 70s spy motif.
But this is kind of reversed from what it is in the book. Here it's Ron giving his information to the FBI, and I think they give a little bit back. But here they basically like, oh, there's 2 KK members that are in NORAD. We're gonna get them the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Which again in the book, they say they sent them to the North Pole, which means they didn't get fired. They just weren't in NORAD anymore.
Yeah, they just got like some undesirable like.
And they got their top secret clears revoked, so but they still had a job.
Yeah, they didn't go to prison forever for like giving the Ku Klux Klan like information and material support, but because basically the Ku Klux Klan is a terrorist organization within America, but it's like, but in the 70s, it's like, oh, you just go to where it's cold. You get to hang out with the cast of The Thing and live in that environment.
Then This is also kind of like in the book. This is kind of the climax of the book. It's like, hey, we got 2 guys kicked out of NORAD. Like that's kind of, and that's almost like the climax of the investigation.
Which in the real world would be very climactic.
Yeah.
Let's remember what NORAD is. It's North American Air Defense. It's like when the Soviets launched the nukes, these are the guys who are going to let us know. And, this is where the guy from what's the movie? War Games is going to go climb around and, fool them all and defeat Whopper. Or not defeat Whopper, but teach it a lesson.
Also in the book, he actually just literally goes to NORAD to talk to guys.
That's cool.
But they don't do that here in the movie.
They should have done that. Probably didn't have the budget for the big door to swing shut.
Yeah.
I
just use some reused footage from the Stargate TV show.
You might as well.
Yeah, I think he says like I'm not sure if this is true, but I think he said he was like the first black guy to be in NORAD. I don't know if that's true, but
I like it. I don't believe it, but I like it because I think the military was integrated pretty way before the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. But I like the. I mean, I'm going to go with it.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, but this is where the FBI gives him. He tells him that Fort Carson's reporting C4 is missing from the armories, and there might be a connection with the KKK, which again doesn't have in the book, but happens here because we need an exciting end to it.
Yeah.
Which,
by the way, would like provoke a military to Colorado City. Like, well, there wouldn't be just a bunch of cops around. There'd be like tanks on the streets. But
Ron has to tell Patrice that he's an undercover cop and he doesn't want her at the counter protest for the KKK because he's like, something's gonna blow up, and she's like, well, we gotta tell people. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. So, and like, I'm like, well, it kind of does, but
actually, that would be the best way for it to work. Like, yeah, we're gonna roll up this whole KKK group, which we already have all their names, who they are, whatever. Don't go to this rally and potentially get vaporized by really powerful explosives, and then like when you have the next rally, point out like, oh yeah, the police had to roll up the KKK because they were willing to kill like 100 people with plastic explosives. But yeah, it's the movie, so it's exciting.
Then we cut to Felix calls off the KKK march. Here, Ron gets security detail of David Duke, which really happened. Yeah, and he just said like, he just never said his name, so he didn't. He was none the wiser. Back to the gun den where there's a meet.
Then they do have the weird like interaction between him and David Duke. He's like, "Do I know you? You sound so familiar." No, yeah, I wouldn't. I never know, which is great.
Let's see. There's another gun den meeting where Connie's like being set up to blow up like a black gathering. Which here I felt like it was like they're setting her to be like a suicide bomber, but really she's just supposed to set
That's what I thought. It's like, oh, is she wearing a vest? It's like, how's this working? Is she gonna be like Allahu Akbar? Before that was cool.
Because I thought that'd be extra sad if she's basically just going to die for no reason.
But she's crazy enough, I believe she would do it.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, it's much more pathetic than that, which makes it true.
Ron meets with David to inform him that he's being on his security detail, which has happened in real life, where he basically said like, he's like, Mr. Duke, I don't believe in anything you say, but I'm going to defend you with my life and beyond to do my job. So he's actually kind of using in reverse what that firefighter guy was doing. He's like, I don't believe you, but I'm going to do my job.
That is what you call, that is a first principle statement. I hate what you're saying, but I will die defending your right to say it. Again, so yeah, we're getting back into this whole world.
There's also
a Glasser world of.
There's also a caravan of racist bikers, which again, that's an extra thing in the book that's not here. They're just kind of like, because I actually get into like, where's the KKK recruiting from? It's like the one thing I was scared about was the army, and then it was like bikers, and then it just got down to like convicts. It's like that's who they had. That's the pool they had to choose from.
And all three of those things are true to this day.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and it was either they were sending like literature to prisons and stuff like that. So you're being surrounded by black people in prisons, like so. It's that's an easy way to like drum up
Yeah,
some hate. So and
yeah, you're
get
not having to
membership.
work really hard for. You're not having to reach on that propaganda too far. This isn't
Uh,
air. This isn't like Air America in the Cold War. It's like
um,
but it's all for the morons.
then we cut to Flip shows up as Ron, and Flip meets David as Ron. But like Ron just kind of stands in the back. Here, Felix and Ivno try to intimidate Ron by like standing close to him. Which here I wrote like, does Felix not recognize him from when he went to his house? But he actually does later on. So, but he just doesn't.
This scene, this last act in the movie that you're talking about right here, this is where it kind of becomes a Spike Lee movie for
Yeah.
me, because we're borderline like, we're just gonna, when are we gonna break the fourth wall here? When are we just going to talk directly to the camera where Adam Driver's going to be like, how am I going to get out of this situation? I mean, really like that close to that.
Yeah.
We never do. We never cross that, but it's like, I could see it happening at this point.
Well, here we start to like intercut.
My favorite part of the movie right here. This whole scene, this is like, oh, I was really locked in.
Well, we get an intercut between like this Ku Klux Klan ceremony and then like this speaker engagement at the Black Student Union, which this stuff never happens in the book. In fact, it's like almost reverse. Like in the book, there's a case like at some point people know who Ron Stallworth is, and like he gets like asked by this church like, hey, why don't like you stood up against the Klan? Like there's government is prosecuting this black kid and like trying to try him as an adult. And then he looked into the case. He's like, "No, this kid just shot somebody in cold blood. He's not a victim."
Yeah, this isn't. You don't want to pick this hill to die.
And I know at that time it's like government's bad. It's like, well, yeah, obviously I know. Like it's like everything's working against you. I can see that, but no, he's a part of the government. He's like, well, it's more complicated, I guess. But here it's completely flipped around. This is like, and the story that's being told at the Black Student Union is a true story. So they're just kind of juxtaposing things here. The speakers.
There is this weird like. Again, I'm not really into all this like cultural moment stuff that's going on right now because I'm like an elderly, man at this point. I'm a senior citizen talking about this stuff. But yeah, sometimes there is immediately this move by some of the more reactionary people in our society to dismiss anything anyone says about someone who might have been like shot in the head sitting in their car or something. And there's like this knee-jerk reaction to do it. Sometimes it makes sense, but a lot of times it's like when you read about this stuff, it's like, oh, this is a mess. It just like when they, I think around this time, remember when we were talking about when they dropped the barrel bomb on the people that were protesting? What was it?
Was it a protest, or was it? Or was you talking about the
black people protesting some kind of rent thing that was going on?
Oh, is this in Philadelphia when they basically the FBI drops that like C4 on that building?
Yeah, and it's like, well, that's insane, like racism.
Yeah.
Writ large. But the problem is the FBI doesn't normally operate that way. They don't operate that way in every case. In this case, they did. But it's like we have this like culture war going on where it's like, oh no, they're always doing this, and it's like, no, they're sometimes doing this, and everyone's defeating their own argument. And just as an outside observer to a lot of this stuff, which I am at this point, it's like, oh, I'm just trying to get to a pension. I have no opinions. But it's sometimes it's like, wow, this is really crazy. It's like we're defeating ourselves in both directions with how we're reacting to this. It's like, because sometimes there is real crazy shit going on, and sometimes it's like, no, you don't want to pick this. This is not where you want to hang your pennant on to die. It's like there's a better fight, somewhere else.
I mean, there's even stuff like that in this movie where it's like Ron is talking with Flip and Jimmy about was it Lancaster or what's his name? I can't remember. The racist cop, and he's like, "Well, you want to go talk to him and like turn him in down?" Landers. Yeah, I was like, "Oh, we can go turn him in right now." It's like no, it's like that's our horrible family that we have to back because that's the only way we know how to do this stuff.
Yeah, it's like a brotherhood because everyone's against us.
Yeah.
Like, we have to put up with this guy because everyone is,
You don't choose your family, but although that's not supposed to be a thing in the police department. You're supposed to, if you don't represent the values that you promised to do, you're supposed to get kicked out. But we know that doesn't happen all the time. Um, so yeah, the speaker is telling a story of like a mentally disabled black kid, Jesse, who's being convicted of a crime they probably didn't commit, like the rape of a white woman, and like an all white jury convicts him in like 4 minutes after deliberation. Then we come back to David Duke. He's talking about like some friend of his creating the transistor and ushering in the computer age, which I can't remember. But apparently that guy came up with eugenics, and so they're just talking about it as if it's
Oh,
true.
yeah, that's the guy who the co-developer of the transistor.
Yeah.
Also, like it was like if Bill Gates' sideline hobby was being a racist. Yeah, I've heard about that guy.
Here, and then we see Ron kind of watches the Klan meeting that's in a basement from like a window that's kind of like up above looking in, which is kind of funny because you kind of just see his afro poking out. Then we come back to the speakers talking more of like basically like after this kid was found guilty, like basically like the town just dragged him out of the courthouse and dismembered and tortured him, and then we cut to the Klansman.
Yeah, it was the worst kind of lynching you could imagine.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Then we come back to the Klansmen are being like baptized or something.
Yeah.
Then we come back to Jerome as the speaker. He talks about like I forget who the actor is. But he died this year. But anyways, Jerome's talking about like the remains of Jesse's body are like being photographed and sold as postcards in the town, which that's fucked up. Because these people just thought they were above the law, like nothing can stop them. And apparently, and this is where we get to like they put together that he says that like the townspeople were like charged up by the film Birth of a Nation, and then we cut to the Klan watching Birth of a Nation, which in the book that's a big recruiting thing where like they have like showings of Birth of a Nation, and that's kind of how where they get more people to like join up is like every time they show Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
So that is a thing in the book.
Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
It's really boring and weird. I mean, it comes with a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
There's no way you can watch this. I would love for people to just like watch it cold. Like, have you ever heard of this? No. Okay, watch it. It's kind of like those Lemmy Riefenstahl films, like Triumph of the Will or whatever. Like you watch them and it's like you're immediately like, yeah, this is horrible because people tell me it's horrible. I would really like to like form my own opinion about like why does this suck? Because it does. But it's also weird because I remember I got it from the library when I was like 12. I was like, oh, I've heard about this. This is supposed to be bad. And I watched it and I was just bored out of my mind. It was the same thing that happened when I read what's the Hitler diatribe? Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
When you could read Mein Kampf, it's like, oh, I want to. Again, it comes back to this theme I've talked about this whole podcast about looking for the evil magic, and it's like it never materializes. It's like, oh, it's all just boring. It's like because the real secret ingredient is not the words written or the images portrayed. It's the real secret ingredient is the hate you have inside you. That's the only thing that makes this work.
Yeah.
And if you don't really have that hate, which I'm not bullshitting anyone, that's like I don't have that kind of hate inside me where I just hate people for being what they are. It's all kind of boring to me. And it's not to me personally, to Nathan, it's like it's not exciting. But for other people, they assign a lot of power to things like Birth of a Nation, Mein Kampf, or anything else you want to watch. And it's like, yeah, it's all kind of boring if you really just don't hate people for, random reasons that, it's like if you don't have the hate in your heart, you'll never like absorb the magic of, whatever these things are. But that's kind of like the underlying fear in our society that people do have this hate in their heart, which for me personally, I don't think they do. I think most people are just trying to pay their bills and live. But, sometimes I think like it's dramatic to think like, oh, if anyone sees this, they're going to turn into Nazis or Klansmen or whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, it's almost like you think everyone's a Manchurian candidate. Like if things get desperate enough, this is what they're going to turn into.
Yeah. And that's what frustrates me the most with it. But people misunderstand that frustration, and they're like, "Oh, you're a right winger who thinks this is all funny and it's a big joke." And it's like, "No, this is really serious." And it's like, "No, no. I mean, sometimes I do think it's a big joke. I'm not a right winger, but it's also like I don't think people are just. I give people more credit maybe than they even deserve. Sometimes it's like I don't think people are this dumb. I don't think they're this brainwashed by this shit. But then stuff happens when I'm like, oh yeah, I was totally wrong about that. I better shut
Yeah.
the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, look what this town did to a guy because they just thought they had the right to
Yeah,
do that to a person. So.
it's like
And
yeah,
flaunted it, like gave their own evidence and sold the evidence to people as tourist gifts. Like that's terrible.
that's weird. That's like psychotic. That's like selling you an eyeball or something. It's like, hey, you want this? It's like, no, that's human remains. Are you crazy?
Now in
But but I make this. I have this problem. I've learned in my short life that I have a real problem with people and assuming how people act, because I always assume everyone's like me and they're gonna like do things like oh yeah, I would do that or I would believe that, and then I'm always disappointed by people. They're doing something completely different, and it's not necessarily stupid, but it almost seems like it's like, oh, this is just some random event generator that's going on that I can't control or even predict what's going to happen because it's a random event generator. And it's like they're doing stuff that doesn't make any sense at all. And it's like, oh, okay, this is where my logic falls apart, because I always because the only reference I have is myself, and I assume like, well, no one would believe this surely, and it's like, oh no, they believe it. They believe the hell out of it because of whatever's going on in their lives. So yeah.
But here we get a cut between the KKK having a white power chant, and then you cut to the black student group having a black power chant. Which I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from that. Are they both bad? Is just one good?
Yeah, I wondered that myself. Knowing Spike Lee, I don't think that's the conclusion. I think it's supposed to be one is just and one isn't. But yeah, I was kind of at a crossroads with that either. It's like, well, am I not smart enough to understand this? What's this mean? But I just rolled with it. So
then we cut to like there's like the Klan are having like a dinner, and one of the Klan picks out Flip as being a cop because he arrested him and put him in jail.
Yeah.
And then Felix like picks out Ron. Ron gets Flip to take a Polaroid with David Duke, and like at the right moment, like Ron Stallworth, he puts his hands over David Duke and the other guy.
Yeah, like they're friends.
Yeah, yeah. Which this really happened. He really did.
Yeah, good. Thank God. Because I was like, oh, I hope this really happened.
It was pretty much
cool as hell.
This is pretty much as described, as it's portrayed in the movie, is what exactly happened. He does a little trick to put their hands on him, and then like, they don't have. There's a phone call later on where like he talks about Ron. He's talking to Ron about Ron in real life, saying bad things about him, because usually David Duke did not use racist terms. He was smart enough to not do that, knowing that that would immediately divide
racist,
the public. Yeah. Behind closed doors, you can throw that stuff out.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this really did happen.
I'm glad this is real, because this is what I really identified with the Ron Stallworth character, because this is the kind of shit I do. I don't really fight against evil or construct a intellectual argument, but I will fuck with people and do things like this because it's like, this is fun. It's like, so I'm glad this really happened, because it kind of justifies my life.
Then Connie leaves to presumably plant a bomb. Ron gives chase. Now we cut to the dinner. Flip is getting his cover blown, and Felix gets a call. We cut to Connie's like too scared to plant the bomb. Felix and Ivanhoe leave. Flip excuses himself from the dinner. Connie tries to put a bomb in Patrice's mailbox, but it won't fit in there. And then we cut to Ron
too flat to fit. What's the best here? I don't know.
I'm like, that mailbox is it's kind of thin metal. You can just kind of
pull that shit out.
Yeah.
Put the plastic explosives in.
It's Play-Doh. You can just
well, don't get me wrong. If you hand me C4 and you say, "Oh, you got to do this and arm the device," I'm getting rid of that shit as soon as I can because I'm really a coward at heart. So yeah, this woman, like,
Oh,
I'd have been pulling on that
well,
mailbox like a lunatic.
yeah, C4. I mean, only the blasting cap will activate it. Otherwise, I mean, you can shoot it. You can set it on fire. Like guys cooked with C4 in Vietnam.
Yeah,
It's only the blasting cap that will blow it up. Um,
all true, but I'm a civilian, and so I
yeah.
don't know anything about this.
I've never dealt with C4 either. I just know those
Yeah,
from a bunch of books I read. So, um,
I'm just trying to put myself in the mind and body of a woman who I know can't run.
yeah, Ron tackles Connie. It's kind of clumsy and awkward. Then
Yeah,
cops.
Ronnie seems to put up like a credible defense. It's like, oh, is she gonna kick his ass? What's going on here?
Then the cops show up and arrest Ron because, of course, again, that didn't happen in the book, but that's what you do in this movie if you want to make draw up excitement. It's like, no, he's the only guy saving things, and you're arresting him. Like, um, uh, and then Felix
Oh
and
God, I wish the argument was that simple. That's all.
then Felix and Ivanhoe and like the other another guy show up. Felix is like looking with like hate in his heart, like as he sees like Patrice like at the door, and then he thinks the bomb's there, so he pulls the trigger, and then it's underneath the car that they parked next to.
I love this.
Which
So long, strangely hot woman I'm attracted to and hate myself for.
um, but like,
Don't they talk about her sexually at a meeting at some point?
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy like really does have those feelings. Oh yeah.
But they don't portray C4 right. Here it's like a big fireball, which I know it's like safer in movie environment, but like it would evaporate this car. Like,
Yeah, it would just blow it to like components of small pieces of metal.
like in slow motion, there wouldn't even be a fireball. It would just be like a strafe, a line of blast wave just ripping things in half like it was an act of God.
Yeah, I mean, see the Hurt Locker, or like when the Donager blows its drive in, the Expanse. It's like that's the kind of destructive force that's in plastic explosives, which I've heard described as the most powerful, like non-nuclear type of explosive you can use. Like, I don't think
Probably.
they've ever improved on it, or they wouldn't need to.
Oh,
Except for
yeah.
stuff that's in like missiles. And
I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's been around since like the '60s, and I haven't heard of anything better than C4. So maybe they just
no, you
just
never hear
knocked
about
out
like C5. Better. You can use it to make fillings in your teeth, and kill people.
Then Flip shows up to tell the white cops to let Ron go. He's like, "What are you idiots doing?" And then here's where Ron flips
They
things.
immediately listen to him.
Yeah.
Well, he's white, obviously.
And this is where it gets the time thing gets turned on him, where he's like, "Thanks for being late."
Yeah.
When it's important, the white guy's late.
You're on Jewish time, I see.
So I have that being the end of Act 2. So we have Act 3. This is kind of like what happens afterward. Ron and Patrice are out on a date. A drunk Landers comes in to like make things awkward. He's like hitting on Patrice, but then also just calling them like bad things.
Yeah.
And then he's like saying like what he would do to black people, and he can't do anything about it. And then it's like a sting on Landers, which is kind of fun.
But what's weird about it is he's also very attracted to Patrice.
Yeah.
Initially, he's like, "Hey, baby, it's like, what can you do with those lips?" Or it's some kind of nasty thing like this. So I'm just saying that to establish, like, oh, he wants to have sex with this woman that he hates, which is like psychotic. But okay.
And then, but yeah, it's a sting operation, which this kind of happens in the book, but it's not like in this way. It's just like that one sycophant guy ends up being an investigation later on, and he gets kicked out the apartment. It's like, oh, he was a bad guy. I don't think he was necessarily racist. He was just a bad cop.
He was just an asshole.
Ron comes into the department, like he's at the intelligence like desk and stuff, and he's saying it's like a celebratory moment, like, hey, we like look at what we did, and everyone's happy and celebrating. Then we cut to like we go to the meeting with the chief, and they're talking about
I
inflation and
love
budget cuts, which again, like, I don't know if they just. I mean, this movie was made like 5 years ago, but it's like, oh, this is still just an excuse for everything.
Well, no, the reason this scene works for me, the reason I like it is because it was set in like 77, 78, somewhere
Yeah,
in that time frame. And it's like, oh yeah, they did this because racism is still like a huge problem.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, because it's like, hey, good job, guys. You pointed out something we're really uncomfortable with and don't want to deal with. So guess what? There's no like Department of Intelligence within the what's the name of the city?
Colorado Springs.
Yeah, Colorado Springs Police Department anymore. Yeah, because of budget cuts. It's like, no, the real reason is you don't want to deal with the underlying issues that have been tearing this country apart from then to now, which, yeah, it's like,
Um,
I love that about this movie. I don't know if they meant to do that. They meant to do that, but it's like, it really works for me. It's like, that makes sense.
well, ultimately, like in the book, like it's because nothing really happens. They're like, well, it's deemed a success because like they kept terrorism from happening inside Colorado Springs, and that's the success is that nothing happened.
Yeah, that's
Which,
like the small S success.
yeah, and like it's
Big
hard
S success would be like, well, there's no more Ku Klux Klan, and there's
to.
not a bunch of weirdos running around with access to plastic explosives in the new 60s.
um, and then Ron is asked to destroy all the evidence of the investigation, which happened in real life, and he took a box and walked away with it.
Yep.
It's
Because
like,
that's what happens in real life. You don't grandstand and go before the Supreme Court and solve racism, because we know that didn't happen because it's still going on.
um, so yeah, he was supposed to destroy this stuff. He was like, well, it's out of people's hands. It's just gonna live in a closet somewhere in my house, and eventually I'll write a book about it, like 40 years later. um, Ron starts ripping up paperwork and leaves a phone ringing on his desk, um, which is like. So what happens in the book is like he talks about leaving a phone ringing, and then like 2 days later, or like 2 weeks later, there is a cross burning, and he's like, "So you shut down my investigation? There was a cross burning."
Yeah.
Um,
So, because that really does happen. Okay. All right.
yeah, but it doesn't happen how it's portrayed here, where it's happened to him. It just happened somewhere.
Yeah. No, I get it, but it's like,
um, but here they have him. He goes back and takes the phone call. That's they left the desk. He went back there. It's David Duke. And here he takes out his frustration, like to the amusement of his fellow detectives, by like making fun of David Duke and letting him know that Ron Stallworth is a black man, and you've been talking to him this whole time.
oh yeah, and I love this scene in the movie because this again feeds into my atavistic fantasies of, I want to tell everyone who ever offended me, fuck you, in this way. This is how I
Yeah.
want to do it. It's like, when I saw this, I was like, damn, I hope I get this chance in my life. I'll never get this chance in my life. But it's like, yeah, I love this.
Which I can't remember if there was ever a moment where I can't remember if there's a moment where he admits to him that like he admits to David Duke who he was. I don't think that happens in the book, but
I'd probably not, because life is way too complicated for that.
but then we cut to like basically Patrice breaks up with Ron, and then there's a knock at the door, and then they both pull out guns, and then we get some like weird camera work that's like something like, I don't know, like some Lynchian slash like crap, who's the Clockwork Orange guy? Kubrick stuff going on here, where like they're like floating with guns, and they're like coming towards the window, and then you see through the window the burning cross.
I would say this scene is more like, who's the guy who did Nope?
Jordan Peele.
Yeah,
He's a producer on this, so
kind of like, I see this more as Jordan Peele
yeah,
type scene, because it's like, it's that kind of work.
yeah.
So yeah, Lynch, Kubrick, Peele, they're all kind of Nope is a David Lynch movie done by Peele. So that's one of my best movies of like whatever year it came out. I think I've watched
2021.
Nope. I think I've watched Nope like 15 times. I don't know why, but yeah.
Oh, we haven't talked about it. Remember, I told you like I saw it in theaters. Like you'll love it, watch it. So I don't. We have to talk about that sometime.
Oh, I love that movie. I don't know why. Uh,
um,
it's something that's like dovetailed with me walking like 5 miles every day type thinking. So yeah, there's probably a reason that I like it that doesn't make sense, but yeah.
Well, then we see the Klansmen are burning the cross. Here they don't do the cigarette pack of matches thing. They just like throw torches at it. And we see like Ivanhoe under a hood, and they see like the cross like reflected in his eye. It's just like a black eye. It almost looks like a horse eye.
Yeah, it's really weird. Because the thing with horse eyes, and I thought that too, is like you don't know if they're afraid or they like it. That's the cool thing about horses, because they literally have a brain the size of a walnut. Like, are they afraid or happy? That's the thing with horses is like they're dumb, but they can kill you.
Yeah.
And then they're supposed to be your friend. So it's like that's that's the mysticism of horses.
And then we cut to news footage of the neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville in August 2017, which I feel this is just Spike Lee diatribing to the audience. I think I used that word correctly, where you're just directly telling the audience what you need to feel. Yeah. And they show like basically Trump not condemning Nazis, like there's good guys on both sides.
Yeah, there's great people on both sides.
And we get shots of that car ramming protesters, and then there's an in memoriam for the white lady who got killed by the car, which I guess that's ironic.
Yeah. This is where the movie disappointed me the most. And I'll tell you why. It's not because like Charlottesville wasn't bad, but it's because, and this movie, it's like it's when it came out, it's of its time. I love this movie to this point, and the only problem with this scene is it's like, oh, this is the dumbest the right wing got at the time this movie came out. It's like, oh no, here comes January 6th. Hold my beer.
Yeah,
it's a lot dumber. So I found like they should just
there were worse things to come, but they were ahead of their time.
yeah, they should just cut this out of the movie and just do a director's cut of January, because that was like, oh, that's high dumb. I mean, Charlottesville was horrible, and it's terrible that woman died, and of course our wonderful president, like, oh, there's good people on both sides. It's like, no, there weren't. But there weren't good people on either side. They all sucked at Charlottesville. But January 6th was definitely like the what's that French term from Revelation Space? Oh, Belle Epoque. Like the best time that ever existed in history for stupidity on the right was January 6th. Because they actually like stopped the functioning of the federal government for like an hour. And that's never happened before. Charlottesville didn't do that, even though it was dumb in its own way. It's like, oh no, this is way dumb.
that was the tiki torch racist, which now that's what made tiki torches synonymous with racism. Then
that's too bad, because I always liked tiki torches when I had my drunken fire pits in the backyard. But I don't
really, it's just lazy Nazis that can't make their own torches and kerosene and a rag. Just get this from Walmart.
Do the work, soak it in kerosene. Use pitch pine.
But yeah, I mean, there's just like there was more like this. Yeah, this movie was ahead of, or like there was more ammo to come for their message they wanted to leave here.
Yeah.
But also there's like a weird thing. But there is like a thing at like the Black Student Union where they basically say something along the lines of like all lives matter, which became a completely different thing later on.
Yeah. Well, that was, I mean, yeah, in the late 70s, because you got to remember the 70s was literally in modern time, in the last 40 years until the 70s, it was literally the most violent time in American history for political action, and there had been a lot of violent times, but the 70s, like, there was crazy shit going on, like people were being killed constantly. So in
the book they also talk about like the thing that, along with the posse comitatus, what they were scared of was like, was it the PLP, where it's basically like communists in America.
Yeah,
That was the other thing they were scared of. So,
yeah, oh yeah.
but the KKK was less than that. So,
We got to remember, like the Patty Hearst, like I've been kidnapped. I'm the heir to the Hearst, newspapers, and now I'm part of the like, what's it called, the Symbionese Liberation
yeah,
Army, and I have all this left wing propaganda to say, and I'm shooting an ooze or a submachine gun at a bank robbery. It's like I've been brainwashed. I'm crazy. Like, yeah, that was the '70s. Like nothing like that nuts has happened since then. Other nutty things have happened, but not like that directly on the face. That would be like if one of Rupert Murdoch's daughters got kidnapped nowadays and suddenly was on the side of like, the most radical. What's the radical communists that fight the Nazis in
oh,
America?
Antifa.
Yeah, yeah. Like Fox News says they're like
Yeah.
taking over the country, like Antifa. I don't know any Antifa people, but because, like I said, I'm just an elderly man now that doesn't get involved in things. I used to go talk to militia people and Nazis, but I don't do that anymore because no one cares about what we say or do. So it's like it's not worth my personal safety to go do these interviews. But yeah,
And then we got to like it's like an upside down American flag that turns to black and white, which is like on the what's on the cover here.
mm-hmm.
Don't know what that means. Although it's, like military people are gonna come for that. It's like, oh, they're desecrating the flag, which
Well, an upside down American flag means distress on the
okay,
sea.
okay,
Like if you have if you have a ship, a plane, if you have a ship and you hang the flag upside down, like yeah, people are going to come to your aid because that
uh,
means distress.
oh, okay. I thought that meant, oh man, I thought that was like a surrender thing too, but I can't remember.
I don't know about surrender. I know it means distress because America, like if you hang the British flag upside down, no one's going to fucking know. So it's yeah, the American flag upside down is very distinct.
yeah,
And that could just be jingoistic Americans talking because it's like our flag is the most important in the world. But
yeah.
yeah, that too. But also, it's like that is understood
Yeah, I
as
mean, I get mad about flag stuff, but not like not. I don't get overwhelmed with it because I also it's like, well, the flag doesn't entirely represent the military; it represents the country. But
yeah,
people are like, no, you're fighting against the military if you do anything against the flag or Pledge of Allegiance and stuff like that. It's like, well, I don't like it, but I also don't like, it's just it's not really hurting anybody. But like, no, this is cutting out the core of what America is. No.
it's only a military flag if it has gold frocking around it. That's how it was described to me. But I took down the American flags behind me in the show because I was like, oh yeah, because I had a flag from the 13 colonies. I had a flag with 46 stars on it, 48 stars on it. The historical flags. I just thought it was cool. And then somebody pointed out, it's like, oh, are you part of a militia group? It's like, no, not at all. So I just took them down because everyone gets weird about the flags.
Yeah.
They're in a box now somewhere.
Uh, well, we're sending a probe into space containing the supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from this movie are we shoving into space?
Oh man, this is really hard. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I watched the movie a half hour before that. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to cheap out and say any scene involving Patrice is going to be a collection of what the movie means. Because she was really sexy.
We'll show that Kwame Ture speech where it's like about the Black Beauty and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, that makes sense because Patrice was in that a lot, so I can agree with that.
yeah. And she
Let's
was the
talk about
president. I love that part where he's like talking. He's like, "You're the president of the Black Student Union." I'm talking to a president right now, which is a good.
Yeah,
like,
it's great. It's like I am getting laid tonight. You're a president, really? My God, I'm so impressed. Tell me all about it. Before we leave, let's talk about the other star of this movie, which is the soundtrack. And the only reason I say that is because all except for like 3 songs in this movie, I basically have this whole movie soundtrack on my iPod.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like especially like well, I remember towards the end of the movie they play Emerson Lake and Palmer's Lucky Man.
I think I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, I mean it's you'll
I mean, I
know.
recognize most of the song. I just don't know like what they're called or who sings them. So it's like
Yeah,
that
it's
song.
oh, I'm a lucky
Oh
man.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I have that. That's like top 10 for me. Um I have Lion Eyes, Photo Ops, Brandy, You're a Fine Girl. Me and Stacy are really into music of the 70s,
Yeah.
and so is our son by default. Because I'm also into a lot of prog rock, which is a thing I think I've explained before on this podcast. Because I was the only like 15-year-old who was into Jethro Tull, which that really dates me. But yeah, so yeah, all except for a very few songs on this in this movie. It's like, oh yeah, these are all like in my play loop on my phone. Which you got to understand, my play loop involves over 500 songs. So that's not really an impressive thing because I have a bunch of songs that I listen to. Just I have it set on randomize, but for some reason in this movie, it's like, oh, all these songs immediately like I know that one, I know that one. So great soundtrack too to a great movie. This is a fun movie. I didn't regret watching it and having never seen it or thought about it before. I'm glad I did.
And that it's a true story.
Yeah, the
Mostly.
true story aspect of it really, like, yeah, once something's not fictionalized, I kind of lock into it. It's like, how did this really happen?
I can't remember the book came out. I think it came out recently, um, because it mentions like the Charlottesville stuff in the book.
Yeah,
Um, but he may have written it and then he may have recorded it because I did it on Audible, so he may have recorded it later on and added some stuff to it. Um, because you figure like after that Chappelle show where they have the Black Klansman, that would be like the perfect time to jump on board for that thing.
yeah, yeah. The blind guy who doesn't realize he's black.
Yeah. And like somebody pulls his hood off and a white guy's head explodes.
Oh no, it perfectly explains racism in America because it's all situational. It's
Yeah.
never because we have like racism in Germany, and it's always weird when Americans try to like, oh, I'm a Nazi. It's like, oh, you're a Nazi, so you're like an Aryan. Cool. Well, I got a DNA test you can do that proves like all Americans are like just hybrids of different Europeans and other random things you'll find. It's like
Yeah.
you're not a Nazi, you're not an Aryan. You're part of a colony of people that came here to flee oppression from somewhere else, and there's no pure blood in America. I mean, we're like if
and
people
that
just
and that's our strength.
well, it's just like me and you. It's like, oh, you look at our name, especially your name. It's like I don't really have like a super ethnic. I kind of have like generic name like Nathan Murphy. It's like, yeah, that doesn't really mean anything to anyone except
Yeah.
like, oh, he's vaguely Irish. But you're like Conlon Murphy. It's like, oh, he must be right out of like Cork or
Ay,
whatever.
chai, chai.
Yeah, and it's like, oh no, it's like he's got like British ancestry,
Yeah, probably British
Estonian
and
ancestry, and it's like, oh,
Prussian or something.
yeah, it's all
Something.
weird.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're not who we say we are. We're because that's America. We're just like we're all like 5% German. Everyone in America is 5% German. It's always weird.
I was like is John Gabris, his dad, who is a ridiculous person when he talks about him. His dad is dead now, but like he talks about him, and because like they kind of like they're from Long Island, and they heavily identified with like the kind of like Italian American culture that like grew
Yeah,
up around New York.
yeah,
And he was like adopted, and he's actually like German, but that didn't stop him from like loving Steven Seagal and kind of going for that kind of thing.
yeah. Wearing like the Italian horn
Yeah.
necklace. I'm like Steve Sharippa from like The Sopranos. It's like, no, you're actually a lot more like Himmler. But yeah, whatever you want to be. That's the thing about America. You can be whatever you want to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point with that is like the thing with America is like it's so simplified here that to actually have racism is dumb because
Yeah.
none of us are like ethnically anything, and it's everything in America is purely color coded. It's like, oh, you don't look like me. You're like obviously this color or that color, so you're inferior. And it's like, well, that's just dumb. That's like the final distillation of stupid and racism in America. It's like, yeah, we can't say we're anything because we're all, a variety of things. So, but it's like we don't like the people that are a different color from us, and it's like, oh, okay, that's vaguely disappointing. At least cook some like Viking lore into it or something, make it interesting. It's like, nope, not in America, because we're all like half Irish, half British, half Italian, and half stupid. Um, Including the people who really like invest in this stuff, like the BlacKkKlan and the Nazis and all those people. And then you find out like those are just prison gangs at this point.
Yeah, what Hitler was like a quarter Jewish. The Klansmen are really big into Christianity. Guess who was a Jew? The whole thing your religion is based on.
Yeah. Yeah, the Old Testament, that's called the Torah, in case you didn't know. Yeah. Those are called the rabbinical texts of the Bible. It's like that's from the word rabbi, which means teacher, which is all Jewish. It's like, oh, okay. And really that has nothing to do with any of us, because we should just paint our faces blue and be like the characters in the Wicker Man, because that's really we're not Christians, we're just Celts. And we should just have beehives and just be burning people alive in giant
bring about the harvest for the Wicker Man.
Yeah, and have fertility rituals.
It's not for the Wicker Man. The Wicker Man burning brings a good harvest.
Yeah, and that's
if it doesn't work, it's our faith isn't good enough.
And that's what we are. And I have yet to ask any like Estonians what they are, because that's like 5% of our DNA. Like, what do you people represent?
Well, if you like what you heard, and how couldn't you? You can find
us. How couldn't you?
You can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. Whatever platform you're listening to us on, you can rate us whatever you want. But the only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. So remember, you control the algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support us of a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. Cancel anytime. You can find us at Twitter or X or whatever the hell at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Facebook, Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. You can watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/greedfactory. So for the this is kind of my white voice. I have my announcer voice. I over enunciate. That's my white voice. Welcome to the Verhoeven Effect podcast.
I mean, white voice is just like was that like an Iron Man, like, hey, no gang signs or whatever, which is like don't use a thumbs up or anything. Is that the equivalent? Like white voice is like, oh, no contractions in your speech. I am going to say hello.
It does not matter.
Yeah. If you want to do white voice, talk like Data on Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's white voice.
Oh yeah. Goodbye, America.
Goodbye.